one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please join me as I pray. Again, Father, we're thankful for the blessings of this day and allowing us to live in what I consider paradise. And Lord, every time these commissioners meet, they set goals and priorities that affect the future of this county. And what I've learned through 6,000 years of biblical history is that if you're not in it, it doesn't work. So we just pray, Lord, that as they set their goals and priorities for this county, that you give them the wisdom to make good decisions that benefit all the taxpayers of this county. We trust you, Lord, and keep your hand on this county and keep us safe through this hurricane season. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Here.
Commissioner Casterline.
Here.
Commissioner Russo. Here. Commissioner Laubach. Here. Judge Mills.
Here, we have a quorum. And we have a presentation of a 2021 Distinguished Service Award from the State Historical Commission to the Aransas County Historical Commission in recognition of its outstanding preservation work and accomplishments. This annual award recognizes Aransas County Historical Commission appointees for managing well-rounded history and preservation-related programs to enrich Texas communities. Mr. Hatman, Ms. Stiles, would you please step forward? Well, and whoever else wants to come over.
Yeah.
Katie, get up there so people see you.
Yeah.
This is the brains right here.
Yeah.
Judge and Commissioners, the Texas Historical Commission awards these Distinguished Service Award, and in 2021, there were 193 counties that submitted reports, the annual report we must do every year to talk about how many hours that we put in as far as volunteer hours are concerned. So out of the 193, only 82 were awarded. This is our 13th consecutive Distinguished Service Award, so we're very proud of that. So we want to present to you a check. Where did you put it, guys? You buried it. That shows that there was 2,871 hours for $71,775 worth of volunteer hours from the historic community, especially in a pandemic. That is unbelievable.
Go get a 4-year-old.
Somebody else have one?
I have one.
Here, we got it. Yay.
under the consent agenda, we have 3 items and Lori, what happened? You're not on there. Oh. Okay,
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
motion made and seconded, Mr. Cheney, Russo. Whoever. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item number 5.
Approve order number 019/2022, an order for the county of Aransas, Texas prohibiting outdoor burning for a period of up to additional 30 days due to the existence of conditions that have been a public safety hazard that would be evaporated by outdoor burning.
I'll
Second
second
that.
that.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Russo,
May I say something?
certainly.
I also would like to point out that we had a recent grass fire in the county that spread over several acres. And that with our new fire marshal, Mr. Aaron Guerrero, citation were issued for that, and I congratulate him for doing that.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item number 6.
Are we tabling?
I move to approve the second
What?
quarter.
We're
Oh, we
taking-
are.
Oh, he's not here. I
Do
didn't
we
know
move
that.
to table?
I move to table the second quarter 2022 report for the Texas Maritime Museum.
Second.
I didn't know he would. Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Laubach. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Item number 7. Aye, and unanimous.
I move to approve order number 0172022, ordering the general election to be held November 8th, 2022, for the purpose of electing county and precinct officers and providing notice of the election.
Motion
Second.
made and seconded, Commissioner Cheney. Any discussion?
I'll answer any questions if you have any.
No question. You got off lucky. Roll
It's
call.
it's all local this year, no state, no federal.
There is some state and federal things on the ballot, but we're only responsible for ordering the county level races.
Oh, I see.
So there will be some federal races on the ballot in November. Our congressional district is on there, and there are state level races on there, such as the governor. Basically, all of our state officers are on the ballot,
So
but we only order our county level races on there, which there's only going to be the one because everybody else is uncontested. But we still have to order it because there is potential for write-in candidates.
We still have the one commissioner race.
Yes.
Oh, you're saying order. I was thinking you were talking about ordering ballots or something. You were
Oh,
saying
right.
our order
No.
only has to address the local ones. Okay. I got you.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I did talk with Mr. Strout over the weekend and asked about the navigation district commissioner races because I didn't see those listed here. And he did let me know that that is a situation sort of like the city and the school district where they contract with us if they choose to.
Correct.
And they'll notify us later perhaps.
Yes.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item number 8.
I move to approve order number 0182022 and order the appointment of judges and alternates for a 1-year term to begin September 1st, 2022.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Cheney. Any discussion?
So these names were submitted from lists from both parties, and this is a standard thing you'll have to do every August term. If you have any other questions, I'll answer those.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Thank
Aye,
you.
unanimous. Item number 9.
Move to approve preliminary closure of approximately 160 linear feet of Rattlesnake Point Road situated adjacent to Redfish Shores planned urban development.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second that.
Second, Commissioner Cheney. Any discussion?
Is this that's not a permanent closure, is it? Is it a
Yes.
permanent closure?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's permanent,
Is
but
it a
it's all
permanent
public, it's
closure or
all private
temporary
land.
closure?
This will be a a permanent closure. This is a preliminary action item. So this, this 160 feet starts at the edge of the
property line.
yeah, the boat ramp that's there, and then goes to the gate into Redfish Bay. It doesn't do anybody any good except for the people going to Redfish Bay. The property owner would like to have it, and
It's a private ramp.
uh,
It starts right past the ramp.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, but
The-
I'm asking, is it a public ramp or a private ramp?
it's public. Yeah.
But
So
the
in-
closure doesn't affect the ramp. The ramp's
No.
before the closure
Yes,
starts.
yes, yeah. So this just puts the burden of maintaining this piece of road on the owners of the Redfish Bay, and that's fine with me.
So it's just the stub of road that right now is public, but it's all on private land and it's between the last public thing, which is the boat ramp and the gate.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous.
I move to approve the purchase of 2 Fairmax signs for $36,400 to be funded with grant funds received through the American Rescue Plan Act and authorizing the county judge to sign all necessary documents.
Second.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Casterline. Any discussion?
I will just mention that we looked at probably 6 different providers, and these signs are the best price for the largest exposure. The signs are 132 inches by 75 inches, and we are opting for a 5-year warranty.
Any further discussion?
They're portable.
If not, roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item number 11.
To approve committing $6,764 to the Coastal Bend Council of Governments toward the cost of professional services of Cobb Finley to serve as consultant for the Coastal Bend Council of Governments responsible for completing and submitting a grant application to the National Telecommunications and Information Administration of the U.S. Department of Commerce for participation in the Middle Mile Grant Program with the goal of expanding and extending middle mile infrastructure to reduce the cost of internet access and to promote broadband connectivity, which grant program will award selected in these funding for up to 70% of an eligible project in the amount between $5 million and $100 million.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Cheney.
Now, I spent some time going through this, trying to sort out how this fit in with what I remembered our talking about in terms of the fiber optic loop. And I would like somebody to check me on whether I got it right. Ultimately, we're aiming at as much as $100 million for 7 or 8 coastal bend counties through the Council of Governments, a grant that we, may or may not get. So this is part of one of the steps leading possibly toward a grant of that kind. That grant, if we get it, would be 70%. We would have to come up with the other 30%, but the expectation is that probably the broadband companies would kick in most of that. And the COG is now estimating how much each county would have to come up with, and our estimated share is about $24,000. This $7,000 that we're talking about today is not part of that. It's in addition to that, but it's for a preliminary feasibility study. So the whole thing is aiming at getting $100 million benefit, but this is just a kind of an early upfront expense in the way of a feasibility report. And this is just our share of the total coastal bend area fee for the feasibility report. Does that sound right?
That's it, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and I had a question on it, and I think Commissioner Castelline answered it, but Nueces, Aransas County, B County, Refugio County, Sampat, and Victoria all put in $1 per estimated population, but Nueces only put in 25 cents per estimated population. However,
Commissioner Castellan told me that Nueces doesn't use much of it because they already have theirs, and this is just a tying into a hub. And that made a lot of sense. So that answered my question.
All right. Any-
I have,
Yes, ma'am.
we have already funded at least one, perhaps more studies by Cobb Finley, have we not?
On this project, on this fiber optic or other things?
It was on fiber optic. I believe that what they're going to do is to enhance it and maybe continue it is what they're looking at.
By saying continue, do you mean to expand it or to make the length of time to finish the project extended?
Colin, I don't know, do you have any answer for that, Colin? I know that their plan is to use what we've already done
I would hope so.
and then add additional to actually expand it or. to-
Right. This
complete it.
expansion is taking it even further than what our original study did. They are including their entire service area of the COG. This is not just limited to our jurisdiction and the few counties we have picked before. This is covering the entire service area that the Council of Government serves. So it's a little bit grander scheme project and a little bit more involved than what we were doing.
Is it the same source of funds that they're chasing now, or are they having to change their format to go after a different grant?
They are changing. They are changing their format. They're going for NTIA, which is the National Telecommunications, whereas before they were looking for hazard mitigation type funding. So we are looking at different grant sources.
So they're having to do some work just to change because each grant agency has its own requirements.
Correct.
So what they're hoping for is that the 6 counties that are listed on attachment 8 will each contribute possibly $764. And then to that, they're suggesting that our portion would be 24,500 is the suggested grant match.
Correct.
Any further discussion?
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye.
I move to approve the purchase of a Wacker Neuson double drum roller from Texas First Rental LLC through the Buy Board, a cooperative purchasing group for the amount of $17,600 and to authorize the county judge to execute necessary documents.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Cheney. Any discussion?
Now, this is a used machine?
It
It's
is.
not a new one?
Yes.
How old is it?
Oh, a couple of years. It's actually one that we are leasing right now.
Oh, okay.
So just go ahead and buy it.
Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous.
And I move to approve the purchase of a 2022 New Holland cab tractor from Equipment Depot through the Buy Board, a cooperative purchasing group for the amount of $53,530 and to authorize the county judge to execute necessary documents.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Russo. Any discussion?
I should have asked for the first one, and I'm asking for this one too, a confirmation that these are both already budgeted amounts.
These are being paid for with the CO.
Okay,
And yeah,
but within it's not coming out of the general fund is right.
money's there.
And talking with Mr. Reed before court began, the picture that is with that agenda item is not exactly correct. We're getting a tractor, but we're not getting a front end loader.
Correct.
Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item 14.
I move to approve resolution number R 18. 2022, a resolution of Aransas County, Texas, certifying that the county has made a grant to Aransas County Council on Aging, an organization that provides home delivered meals to homebound persons in the county who are elderly
and/or have a disability, and certifying that the county has approved the organization's accounting system for their fiscal agent.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Cheney.
Now, I understand this is a $45,000 grant, that it's the same one we make every year, and that the idea is by certifying to the granting agency, the Texas Department of Agriculture, that we've made this grant, we enable the Council on Aging that does Meals on Wheels work to seek grant funds through that program.
And we've included that 45,000 in the current budget that we're working on.
As well as
Thank you.
last year's budget. I mean, we do it every year. Right.
Right.
Oh, so this is for next year because this is for 2023. Okay, got it.
Those folks do a good job. They really do.
Yes, they do.
They do.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Mr. Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. Tracy, resolution is, I don't have one here for us to all sign. Okay. All right, okay. Item 15.
I move to approve the amendment to the Harbor Oaks Village Shopping Center lease agreement, which acknowledges that ILS Rockport LLC has purchased the property and assumed the lease, and incorporates changes previously approved by the Commissioners Court and sets forth the dates for the third extended lease term.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Casterline. Any discussion?
Now, I understand we previously approved all the business terms of this lease. All we're really doing now is acknowledging the substitution of the new owner.
That's right.
That's correct. The only additional change is defining the third extended term. The original lease said that our extended terms could be between 3 and 12 months in length. This third extended term will be defined as 12 months.
So this takes us through mid next year, which is when we expect to be able to move into the new building.
We will be officially renewed through the middle of next year, but have an additional third term available from 23 to 24 if necessary.
Okay, thanks.
And Jen, looking at this, the sum of the payments, E, F, G, we're paying 23,520 per month. Is that correct? Or Jackie, whomever?
The language that's in this lease amendment reflects what the Commissioners Court approved last year.
We're paying $18,000 a month. Yes, it's $18,000 per month is what we pay.
And what about the pro rata share of the common area and the pro rata share of insurance premiums and the pro rata share of taxes?
It's 18,000,
Those
but it's a
were
triple net.
actually in that amount. that-
18,000 there included?
Yes,
Great,
ma'am.
thank you.
Any further discussion?
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo. Aye. Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. Unanimous. Item 16.
I move to approve a request for the approval and adoption of a new employee handbook policy regarding mental health leave for peace officers.
Motion made, second, Commissioner Casterline. Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo. Aye. Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item 17.
I move to approve a request for policy revision to employee handbook on vacation leave policy.
Motion made, second, Commissioner Casterline. Any discussion?
Yes, when we discussed this last time, I don't remember if that was in May or June, I was very much opposed to the idea of giving away a week of vacation after someone had worked here for 6 months. My position on that hasn't changed. Businesses don't do that. And if we haven't kept an employee here for a year, I don't think we need to be paying them vacation. It will be a liability to the county. Anyone who leaves after 6 months will be paid out 40 hours of vacation. And we have never incurred that. And I don't know if we have a proposal of how much that's going to be, but it'll be expensive. And I think it sends the wrong message. That you can come here, work for 6 months, get a week of vacation and go.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Against.
Commissioner Lava,
No,
Judge Mills.
Yes. 3-4, 2 against. Item 18.
Move to approve a request for policy revision to the employee handbook for provision regarding emergency bereavement and funeral leave.
I'll second that.
Motion made, second Commissioner Cheney. Any discussion?
I sent an email last week asking if we could get, I'm not sure how easy it is to give an estimate of the financial impact of something like vesting early. Were you able to come up with anything, Linda, to sort of give us a feeling for the financial hit? I mean, I guess it's an actuarial kind of estimate.
We're on item 18 right now, which is the bereavement leave. I think you're talking about item 19 and we're not there just yet.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we had just switched to 19. Anyway, that'll be the question I'm about to ask.
Back to item 18. Any discussion? Roll call.
But wait,
Go ahead.
didn't we just vote on 8?
No, we voted on 17.
This is talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, vacation was what we, go ahead, sorry.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item 19.
19.
I move to approve a proposed employee handbook policy revision to include the specific vesting requirements for the county's retirement system, to reduce the vesting period from 10 years to 8 years, and to approve other changes intended to clarify language and organize information.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second,
Okay.
Commissioner Cheney.
I
And
do
now-
have some numbers from TCDRS if I can approach.
Okay. And while we're waiting to get those numbers, I'll just say it's, unless it's unexpectedly more expensive than I thought, it does seem like a good idea to be able to attract new employees with a vesting schedule that is more in line with local businesses.
You know, these, is this on? Can you hear me? Okay. Unfortunately, I was out for a few weeks due to health reasons, so these numbers were ran last year. So they're going to be a little different, but not by much. Tana does have numbers for how it would affect payroll that she can share with you as well. If you notice on those, it's showing that our current rate for 2022 would be 10.07, but we have actually gone down. We're at 8.94 this year. So those numbers will be a little bit lower than what they showed last year.
Do you want those? So if we, so current year, this year is 10.07%. And if we stay with the 10-year vesting, it'll be the 8.94. If you do change to the 8-year vesting period, it does change that to 9.42%, which would be $60,000 more than the 8.94. But still currently budgeted, it will still go down since this year is 10.07.
And it will still actually be beneath what we've been paying in 2022 and what we thought we would be paying in 2023.
Correct.
It sounds a lot cheaper than an across the board raise, and yet helps us recruit.
And no additional payment to fund it either, like last year when we had this discussion.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous.
I move to approve a proposed policy revision to the employee handbook regarding military leave.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Casterline. Any discussion? Roll call.
This one, I should just say for the purpose of the public, I mean, this one, like the one on mental health leave, it is already something we do under state law. We've just never included it in the handbook for clarification before. Why we're really not having much discussion. We discussed it once when we brought it up the first time, and we're not doing anything state law doesn't require us to do anyway.
This is the military leave policy that incorporates state and federal requirements into one policy, extending from approximately a paragraph currently to being several pages long. The idea is that any military member be it a state military force or federal, should be able to go to one policy and see what their leave entitlements are. We did have a question previously about continuation of health benefits while a military member is on military leave. And I wanted to assure the court that I did go back and look again at the federal regulations, and our language that says the military member may choose to continue health benefits is what is required under USERRA, and that they may be responsible for paying their portion is a choice that we can make. So that language that's in this policy is the same as it was on July 25th when we reviewed it.
Okay, and I think my concern was that we would say will, that they would reimburse us rather than may. I had no problem at all and was supportive of our offering the policy to them while they were in active duty. It was just to make sure that if the county were paying, that we were reimbursed the employee's share while they were out. And I still have that concern.
So
Okay.
the way it is written now, we have that option, but we also have the freedom to cover their premiums. Is that correct? But we would make that decision on a case-by-case basis.
That is correct. And it's something that the Commissioners Court could choose to revise today if you'd like to. It would be paragraph 8. Excuse me. It says continuing health benefits. Employees on military leave may continue insurance coverage while on military leave. Employees on military leave may be responsible for paying the total cost for such coverage. If you'd like, you could change that language today to be employees on military leave shall.
I guess I would personally rather leave us the freedom to vote later to cover it, as long as it's something that we have to vote on affirmatively each time, having considered the circumstances. I'm not sure I understand all the circumstances under which somebody might be off on military leave enough to know that it's always a requirement that the employee pick up the entire tab. It might be the usual way we approach it. But we would perhaps like to have the freedom to make a different determination.
Yeah, I had one question too. If we have somebody that goes on military leave and they have dependents, and they're paying the insurance out for the dependents, while they're on military leave, do they automatically move over to the military dependencies, or how does that, I mean, I don't want to do anything that leave, the dependents in a lurch, something they have no control over.
Commissioner, the military member would have an opportunity to go to the federal program, which I believe right now is TRICARE, but it would be up to that military member to choose which coverage he or she would like to retain. And there is a possibility the military member would like to keep both TRICARE and the county's coverage. The employee would still be responsible for paying for that portion of the family coverage. The only question would be whether the military member would be responsible for paying the county's portion too.
Okay, so if you're, if you're National Guard and you get called up for something, and you're there for 3 months or whatever, you will have the choice to either, if TRICARE is available at that particular time. I don't know what the waiting period is for TRICARE, but they could continue their family insurance, but they would have to pay what they now are paying, right?
That's correct.
And possibly not only what they now pay, but what we previously were paying on their behalf as part of their benefits package.
That's possible.
We have the freedom to require them to start paying that amount, but we also have the freedom to say we'll cover it, or we might cover it for 90 days until they get vested or whatever under TRICARE or whatever they're going to. We have options, but we're not obligated to extend any of those extra benefits.
That's correct. Our intent, I think, is it's clear that we would never intend that an employee or the employee's family would be without coverage.
All right. We ready?
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterly.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item 22,
21.
21.
21, I'm
I
sorry.
move to approve the July 2022 indigent healthcare report.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Casterline. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Cartwright? And I want to thank you again for the extended report that you give us on this. So looking at this, and I believe the fiscal year closes at the end of this month. Is that correct? Okay. We are currently at about 3.5%. Okay. And I just would point out that of the expenses in the month, indigents were about 12,700 and inmates were about 24,500. So a 1-to-2 ratio.
Is that usual? I thought maybe in the past it had been almost entirely inmates, but is a, 1/3 indigent and 2/3 jail about normal for you?
Probably, but I mean, it all depends. It
Changes from month to month.
just depends on the medical condition.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have a lot that require medical in the jail, but
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Law.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. Item 22.
This is the placeholder item I put in, and given that we're going to have a budget meeting, budget workshop for the rest of today, and that no member of the public has come to me with an item, I have nothing to add.
Item 23.
We do have to set the public hearing if we are going to have the public hearing on the 22nd.
Okay.
For me to be able to put the ads in the paper, y'all will have to approve a public hearing. And it is the agenda item
Yeah, I
does
see
allow
that.
for you to schedule a public hearing.
Want to set the public hearing for August 22nd, 8:45 a.m. I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second, Commissioner Laubach. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Go ahead.
are we good?
Yeah.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
I just have one question. Before this meeting began, I was talking to the auditor, and didn't you say we had to make some decision by noon today if that meeting holds?
I basically need to know the tax rate. It's not going to be the proposed, we still have to take that action next meeting. But I have to have an idea of what we're going to use to fund this budget, because our notice says, it's in the notice that we put in the paper what it's going to be. And it's
It's not
the
finalized, but
final
it's,
set
but
rate,
it's notice
this
of a
is just what we're
possibility.
Proposing to fund the budget on. So
All right.
we'll work on that in workshop, and if I have those numbers by noon, then we're good.
Okay.
And then sorry to interrupt again, but the idea is that we would have the final decision on the 29th, and we could have
Well, you're going to actually propose a tax rate next meeting.
On the 15th.
15th. And then that's the rate that we will propose, and that's where everything will go from. But the actual budget itself will be adopted on the 29th.
okay, so what happens on the 22nd? There's a public hearing.
We
but
have
is
to have
there-
a public hearing on the budget. And if we do anything but the no new revenue rate for the tax rate,
We have to do it
will
then.
also have to have a public hearing for the tax rate.
But on the 22nd, I guess what I'm asking is, will we take a vote that nails down either the budget or
No.
the tax rate? Or
No,
we-
the public.
That doesn't
hearing is
happen
not a
until,
vote. No,
that didn't happen until the 29th.
exactly.
So the public gets a week's notice of what we intend to do on the 29th.
Yes, ma'am. And we have also filed the budget, the proposed budget or preliminary budget with the county clerk's office as required at the end on the 29th of July. That was filed. So it is in the county clerk's office.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
What are we voting on?
I'm going to start over because I'm not 100% sure where we
Right.
are. So.
Setting
uh,
the meeting,
I think
The
we were
public
on
hearing.
number
Public
4, but I
hearing.
don't want to skip anybody. So,
Public hearing.
public hearing.
right,
Okay.
but I need the vote.
I
So
make-
I've got
Okay.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous.
Sorry for confusing the vote.
No
Are
worries.
we on the same page now? Number 23.
I move to approve the 2023 salary for district court reporters as set out in the 2023 district-wide district court budget previously submitted to the Commissioners Court.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. we have a little discussion here, and Judge Flanagan is here
If
to
you
answer all
have any
questions.
other questions, we went through this when I made the presentation about the 5-county or the Aransas County portion of the 5-county budget, the need to have the court reporter salaries up to what the salary study indicated was frankly a baseline, even though we've got a number of court reporters with approximately 30 or more years of service, which would put them in line for perhaps quite a bit more. And we have other jurisdictions that are paying quite a bit more. But fortunately, we've got court reporters that for other reasons want to stay put where they're at right now. So basically, it's the, I guess, the reconfirmation of that portion of our 5-county budget that applies to court reporters as it's funded by the Aransas County and needs a Commissioner Court approval. Talking to Commissioner Cheney and Commissioner Cashline, confirming with them that the proposed budget for the court reporters is $102,910 beginning in January. That's about a 14.5% increase over last year. That's about far and away the biggest increase that they've had, I think, in many, many years, but it's still, we didn't want to push the envelope too hard. It's still about $20,000 less than the courts that have stolen or purloined our most recent court reporters. But we think that this is necessary to keep our courts running. I know Judge Bianchi's in a real good situation. He's got a retired court reporter that is working on a contract basis. My information from his administrator is that on a annual basis, it winds up being more than $102,000. I know that the JP's had a need for a court reporter just last week. All of our 4 court reporters were in court with the 3 of us judges and a visiting court reporter. Judge Bianchi's was in his court. I don't know what they did. They were calling all the way down to the valley to try to find somebody that could come in for half a day. And last I heard before I left the courthouse about 4 o'clock the day before, they still hadn't found somebody. So that's the nature of the great need that we have to keep what we've got and not endanger that in any way. That's really all I've got, is just asking the Commissioners Court to reconfirm what had been proposed, and I think what y'all had accepted as the Aransas County's commitment to their portion of the 5-county budget.
So we're looking at a 14.5% increase this year. What are we anticipating for next year?
For next year, I don't know. I don't anticipate that great an increase next year. We're certainly not going to be asking for another 14%. We've really got them settled down with this increase that brings us up to basically what some folks would call an entry-level position for court reporters. I would anticipate that if the inflation rate and the circumstances regarding other court reporters don't change much, we would be asking for an increase, but it would be somewhere in the 5-8% range.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I have no idea what the rest of this year is going to give us. And again, given the longevity that we've got with several of our court reporters already, in several years, we're going to be looking at replacing those folks, and that's when a real hit could come, when we find out for sure how difficult it is to replace these folks. Otherwise, we're spending of perhaps millions of dollars district-wide to go through an automated system, which still requires court reporters to do those transcriptions. And I'm sure that that's not a budget that anybody wants to bite off.
Judge, you were telling us that the difficulty in getting a court reporter took y'all a year to replace one.
Last time we had an opening, we were without one of our court reporters for a year. Had our fill-in basically going full-time in the courts. None of them got any time out of court to do their records that they're required to for courts of appeals. We had somebody that our one newbie is somebody that got certified after the completion of the program at Del Mar. And once they're certified, then they can come in to court. But unless that happens, and they're only producing 1 or 2 a year at Del Mar. I don't know about the other institutions that are working on court reporter instruction. But yeah, that was our most recent experience, that we had to wait over a year before we could find a replacement. We went a full year without even having any applications. Phew. That's the state of court reporters, and that's the way it is statewide. That's why the legislature and the Supreme Court Court of Criminal Appeals out of Austin are doing a lot of funding to ramp up court reporter instruction and looking at alternatives. Although the alternatives, again, would if some courts are having to do that just because they can't get any court reporter for any purpose out in Alpine, Texas, say. So they've had to invest huge amounts of money to set up kind of system that Colin would be doing here, having multi-track recording systems in place of a court reporter. But even when you've got that, you still have to engage a court reporter from someplace to get the written word on paper for appellate purposes and other purposes. And so it just puts off the actual need for a live court reporter, lessens some of that load, but doesn't eliminate it. And so there's not a real good situation other than recognizing that, we can't do without court reporters. We've got to pay to have good court reporters stay, do the work that's required. Otherwise, the business just stops.
And they're pretty demanding and
Well,
in demand.
I was joking with the commissioners just a few minutes ago that my court reporter, we're talking about courthouse security and courtroom security. And they told me that when they're going through court reporter school, they are instructed that if there's an active shooter, if something happens, that they're supposed to stand in front of the judge and take a bullet for him. And I said, no way. I mean, judges are easy to come by. You can replace me fairly quickly. But court reporters, another thing. I should be standing in front of them because they're the real scarce commodity.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Judge. Any other questions? For
I just wanted to confirm that is already in our budget, the draft budget.
Yes.
It is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castellan.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. And Tracy, what I was asking you to do is go get my book because I got to this door and forgot my budget book. So if you will.
Thank you all very much. We
Thank you,
appreciate your
sir. I
support.
Thank you, Judge
appreciate it.
Flanagan.
I move to approve proposal to publish delinquent taxpayers' names.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded by Commissioner Cheney. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castellan,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous.
Move to approve budget line item transfer.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Cheney. And roll call. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castellan,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye,
Move to
26.
approve accounts payable and payroll liability.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Gasserline.
Do you want to bring anything to our attention, Jay?
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castellan,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Laubach,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. We need to read reports and precinct fee reports or not? Okay. This is also the time, if any elected official or department head has anything like to bring up.
I've asked at the next regular meeting, I think, what's the next, on the 15th? 15th, well, the next meeting that we're having I have requested a lady from Social Security to come and talk just about Part C. In my outs and abouts around my precinct, I found out a lot of people don't know anything about Part C, and she's gonna come and spend 10 or 15 minutes and answer our questions. So if you know any people over 65 that might have an interest in that, I'd certainly enjoy having them.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any further? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded. And roll calls unanimous. Now we're gonna go, we're only 20 minutes late. We're gonna go into, okay, 5-minute recess.
Was that Commissioner Castleton who seconded the adjourn?
I'm gonna go to them right now. All right, we're gonna start the budget workshop, and I was contacted by AgriLife last week with some interest in the fact that we would like to have a marine agent here as well as ag agent. And come on up, let's talk.
Good morning. My name is RJ Shelley. I am the Calhoun County Marine Extension Agent. And so I was asked to just come down and share with you all a little bit about what the best way for me to do it is to just tell you what I do in Calhoun, so you might know what benefits having a marine agent would be for you all in Aransas. I have come down and worked the last few years at times with Ginger and Megan. Having a marine agent here, along with the other two outstanding agents you have, I think will provide a definite benefit for the county. The marine programs that I do up there, I handle water safety programs for the kids. I do the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department boating education certification course. We bring in the Coast Guard, the game wardens, the fire department. It's a hands-on. You know, we're using fire extinguishers. We're certifying anybody that was born before September 1 of 93 so that they can operate a boat by themselves. I also do CPR first aid and AED certification training. All of your licensed captains are going to be required to keep that certification current. And down on the coast, sometimes it's hard to get that. And we try to base this training on real world. I'm a little more the blue collar style extension agent. So we put the dummies on the boats, on the individual guides' boats, on the shrimpers' boat, whoever needs it, so that if they have an emergency while they're out there, they will know where they can perform CPR, because it's not as easy on a boat when it's pitching around as it is if you fall on the street. Do some marine career programs for kids, just because a lot of the jobs that are available that are good jobs in the marine field, if the kids are aware of it, then they may decide that's what they want to do. And the Texas Sea Grant agents, which is we're both AgriLife, Sea Grant, and county, we are HACCP certified, which would assist your seafood processing facilities. Now, your more established processing facilities, they probably have people already for that. But what you're seeing down here, you have at least one oyster farm up and running already. And as these other oyster farms come up and running, and I think from what we're seeing, Texas Sea Grant has an oyster mariculture specialist that's housed in Palacios with a demonstration farm. We set up people that want to get into this, and we bring them up and they teach them how to do it. They also keep them current on the research. But with the state of the wild crop oyster fishery, I think in the next 5 years, you're going to see a few more people go into the oyster mariculture. You've already got a more established one here. As they get into that, some of them are going to need some assistance with the proper handling of those oysters on the HACCP side. And that's where we can come in and help them get started.
What is that word you're using? HACCP?
HACCP, yes. It's Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. And it's some training that goes in Texas. I worked for the Department of State Health Services for 25 years before I retired and became a marine agent up there. I did the oyster water and oyster meat monitoring, but all the shellfish plants get inspected by the state. It's pretty rigorous. It's monthly, and they have a hazardous analysis critical control point type of inspection. And it's just to prevent illness. It's the thought process behind it is the person that owns and runs the plant sets the program up because they know that process better than anybody else. And then the state inspector and federal inspector just comes in behind them and makes sure they're doing what they're saying they're doing and that they're keeping the reports handy. But when you have a new person, like a new oyster farmer that might be getting into this, they're not even going to know what that is. And so they need a little help getting up to speed.
Tell me what your guys' role is then, or the maritime specialist you would like to add? It would be somebody that would sort of walk people through these procedures and
Yeah.
help them
yeah.
understand,
Like if you had a
provide
new-
training maybe, or?
Yeah, we provide training for people that are interested in getting into oyster farming, but also if you had a new facility and they were trying to set up their first HACCP plan,
Mhm.
they can call one of us and we will go in there with them. We are non-regulatory. So we'll go in and help them think through the process and analyze what the problems is so that we keep them out of trouble.
Okay.
Because if they get an illness associated with that product, it's going to hurt them. A couple of the other things that I do in Calhoun, I assist the county with the county boat ramp. Anytime there's a county boat ramp project in Calhoun, two of the boat ramps that were paid for with Go Mesa money, during the process, the state came back and said, you need an oyster survey for both of those ramps. And the commissioners that had those ramp projects were not expecting it. It was something new. I did it. I called the Matagorda County Marine agent. She came down, helped me. We did it. We also had to apply to Texas Parks and Wildlife on behalf of the county for aquatic introduction permits, because when the ramps were pumped dry so that new concrete ramp could be poured, you have to have an AIP permit from Parks and Wildlife. And then I was on site when those things got pumped down to transfer the fish and wildlife that were in that area outside the area. I filled out the reports afterwards that went back to the state. In addition to the cost savings on that, the commissioners in precincts 1 and 2, which are where those two projects were, they told me the biggest advantage to that is it kept that project moving on track, because otherwise they would have had to go hire an outside contractor to do it. And they had someone basically in-house. The other thing, we had a federally funded boat ramp in precinct 1 that the feds came in and said, well, you need a Fish and Wildlife Service endangered species report. And so I got a call from that commissioner and we were able to do that. I called the Fish and Wildlife Service, some people I know over there, they helped me walk through that. And as the county marine agent, those regulatory agencies are fairly open to the fact that we're tied to Texas A&M also. So we have some background knowledge, and I had access to some experts to where we could account for the endangered species, fill the paper out, check the box, go to the location, make sure this particular bird was not there, and keep that project moving. And that project in precinct 1 was a Chocolate Bayou boat ramp that just opened this past weekend. They were afraid that was going to get delayed. The other option, you may see a benefit in Calhoun. Myself and our 4-H agent were able to access some grant funds from the Matagorda Bay Mitigation Trust. We got $51,500 for educational equipment, which has been used in the county, and some of it has been here for Sport Fishing Day, rods, reels, kayaks, microscopes. We use that equipment with the 4-H program, Calhoun ISD, as well as the Calhoun YMCA. So some of that equipment can come in and be used everywhere. And currently, under the Infrastructure Act, the Federal Infrastructure Act, because these marine agents are part of Texas Sea Grant, which is funded by NOAA, the infrastructure money has to come through a Sea Grant. So I've got a project that we're putting a grant through right now for some of that infrastructure funding for Calhoun with the city of Port Lavaca and with Calhoun Precinct 1. If we get the grant, it could be up to $1 million, but there would be a $300,000 to $600,000 direct impact on Calhoun County and the city of Port Lavaca for equipment. And the grant will also allow us to pay for some of the city utilities workers' time. And we're supposed to, under the Federal Infrastructure Act, use the funds to hire local contractors to do installations. So if we get that, it is going to have a significant impact on the county. The other thing we do is we provide science programs for Calhoun ISD, which you would do it here with Aransas ISD, as well as professional development training for the teachers. Up in Calhoun, and I'm assuming it's similar down here, you're a smaller school district, it's harder to get science teachers the professional development training that they're required to have. We do that. As AgriLife and Sea Grant, we can access some of the professors at A&M to help put that on. And through the Sea Grant component, we were able to work in a partnership with Baylor, and Baylor had access to some new NOAA funding for teacher professional development. So in addition to getting the teachers the hours they needed this summer, we were able to use the NOAA funds to provide them with a stipend to pay for their meals during the training and to pay for their lodging, because, you know, teachers, they need help financially to get to that point. So that might be one other benefit. And then I served, and if you had a marine agent, they would probably be your county link with your conservation groups down here. You've got Flatsworthy based out of here. You've got a big CCA presence. And I think just by having a liaison that those groups can contact when there's funding available for certain projects, of course, it makes sense for that marine agent to try to steer that project to their area. So I just think probably from an investment standpoint, it's a pretty decent investment for the county. I think in Calhoun, it's worked out for them.
What kind of investment? What's it
Well,
cost to bring in one?
For those of you that don't know, we've had a marine agent here for years, and then we had a commissioner that had more interest in 4-H than he did fishing. So I don't know what happened, but we're surrounded. I mean, we're not an island, but we might as well be one. We have water on 3 sides of us, all the whole county. So the interest in safety and marine life should be there and is there, and I think it would be a real addition to helping out the not only the kids, but everyone in this county. And the request from Donnie says they'll get an agent here, and Ginger and Megan said they make room for him or her there. And it's $18,500 a year investment, and A&M plus the travel, and A&M will finance the rest of it.
Let me ask a question. We've had several shoreline restoration projects and things like that. Would this type of agent from A&M be able to help us with some of the, like, you know, we've had engineers tell us to do, you know, some practicality and everything. Is that something that y'all would do too?
Absolutely.
You know,
I mean, we've had some situations like that. We need an answer locally. I call our director of Sea Grant, who have we funded that's done that? And I got that answer. I've got that documentation. We provide it to whomever needs it for that project.
Well,
we also have some resilience people. There's 6 county marine extension agents in the state. If you picked one up, you would be 7. There's also a few people that work in the field for Sea Grant that are Sea Grant only. We have some resilience people. We have people that help with disaster planning for hurricanes. We fund engineering for flooding, shoreline stabilization. So any type of information that you would need on any of your projects like that, you would have a direct link to get that information. And usually if we make a call, if I've got a project going on, I've got a couple of erosion projects we're working on in a couple of the precincts. If it's above and beyond what I'm comfortable, normally if I make the phone call and say, hey, can you send this person down? You know, I've got a highly qualified individual to come actually look at what your problem is and try to help you.
I'm thinking, you know, we're doing a lot of drainage stuff. The county is very proactive in its drainage about how it would affect things like Little Bay and Aransas Bay. And
Commissioner, I hate to interrupt you. One of them has a doctor's appointment and they need to leave, and they're just introducing the fact that they're willing to come here and help us out. And I think it's something we should consider, and we need to move on, and they need to leave. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask a money question first? And this may not be for you, but how much does A&M pitch in? If what we end up paying is at 18.5, how much is A&M helping out with?
They pay the rest.
Which
And
is
so
how much?
It'll depend on who they hire.
Just roughly, I mean, give me a,
Probably,
is it half? I mean,
oh, it'll
it's
be more than
more than
half.
half.
Yeah, it'll
Way
be
more
more
than
than
half.
half.
around 75, did you say?
Actually, the state pays part and Sea Grant pays
Right.
part. and we
Within,
pay part.
within the marine agent, in Calhoun County pays every 2 weeks. I get a check from Calhoun twice a month.
I'm,
I
I'm,
get one check from A&M.
I'm trying to get a rough idea whether 18.5 is a
Megan seems to
small
have-
Megan
fraction
needs
It's
or.
a small part of the total compensation. And then, of course, the university's covering all the benefits.
And then also, that's not in the budget, but we're talking about adding it. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, that's all I need.
Megan? Go to the microphone, please.
I was just gonna say, when I was first hired, what y'all pay, compared to what AgriLife is paying for me, y'all pay a little over a third of my salary. So the county pays about a third of my salary. And
And
so that could be.
I might add, Donnie said it's negotiable about the travel allowance.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
One other last thing I tell you, unless you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm 54. This is my second run. I retired, I came into this. This has been my way to give back. I've been here for 3 years. I have been asked, and I would be the one, depending on who they would hire to bring in here, because I'm your county to the north, I will be training that person. So that person will get 30 years of work in the marine industry just to introduce them to the right people. And sometimes maybe show them, hey, this looks great on paper, but this doesn't work in the real world. Try this. So if you chose, you'll probably see more of me down here until that person gets their feet wet and gets on the ground. So.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
for the
you.
information. And y'all need to leave. Go ahead. All right, Jackie, where do you want to start here?
Well, let me share the screen here.
Do we do a quorum or do we have to?
It's on the agenda. I don't believe we did.
Okay, Colin, I'm not sharing here. Why am
We
I
have
not sharing?
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Here.
Commissioner Russo,
Here.
It's on.
Commissioner
I turned
Lava.
it on.
Here.
Judge Mills.
Here. Unanimous, we have a quorum. Okay.
Hey, does anybody have anything that they want a concern with? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. We did add the change on the employees for the 8-year vesting, so that is in this budget. It's not in what you have, but it's what we have. Colin, why is mine not sharing when I'm trying to share? Let's see where. Sorry. Technology is not my forte. Because I was trying to go to the wrong thing to share. Thank you, sir. I was trying to share up here. It's really kind of up to y'all what y'all want. This budget is, sorry. This budget has the no new revenue rate in it. So that is where we stand with it. If you'll see at the very front, we are looking at reducing fund balance by about $3 million.
And how much does that leave us in the fund?
That would still leave us at fund balance of about 6.6 million. We did budget last year to go into fund balance by 1.4 million, almost 1.5. I don't anticipate that we will do that. Looking at my projections, we're probably going to end up not using that reduction. Although this 3.3 also includes using that. Well, it includes that 1.5 because we haven't made it up. So we're technically just like another 1.5 into fund balance. We have to do something or it's going to continue to snowball. we either need to reduce some expenditures, look at some other revenues, which I believe there's some revenues that we might be able to look at and increase. We did a sales tax, Alma, of 7%. We have traditionally done anywhere from 13, 14 to 16% increases. I think maybe we can go 10 and still be conservative.
I think I lost the thread of what you were discussing changing. 10% change to what exactly?
Increase in sales tax.
From,
We budgeted a 7% increase in sales tax.
oh, you're saying not changing the sales tax rate, but you think
No,
that
no,
the,
we
you think
can't
that the
change- we
sales
can't do
will,
that.
That's,
But the
that's
amount
what we
of
expect to
collection-
recover.
Yes, ma'am.
Your projection of the estimated collections we'll have next year.
Right,
Yes.
based on
Thank you.
volume of sales.
Yes. There's one of the things that I did put in here, and I know Tana talked to Commissioner Russo about it. I had budgeted to fund or clear the fund for long-term recovery, and it's $600 and some $1,000. We may want to do that in increments rather than in one lump sum, because that's almost $250,000 that we take out of fund balance to zero that fund out. If we did it in increments, it would not be such a large hit at one time to fund balance. I also do have a worksheet that I was going to give y'all.
How is it that we ended up short? Is that because we thought we were going to get reimbursed by grants and it didn't work out in the end, and we don't really think it's going to now?
Yes, ma'am. It was actually, we anticipated all of the, help me just, I forgot the word. Force account labor. All of the admin fees that when William and Kim and any of the department heads worked on these projects, but the amount that it was not covering it. I mean, we got maybe $40,000-$50,000, but it just did not cover what was anticipated. It was
FEMA's decision, didn't you say, on how much they'd allow?
well, it was based on a percentage, but it also was based on the number of hours that were put towards the project. And we did not have, even though the percentage said we would get it, we couldn't get reimbursed by a percentage. We got reimbursed by the number of hours that were worked towards that project, and we did not have the hours to meet that percentage.
I think you should go ahead and straighten it out, because it really is a false deal.
It is.
You don't owe the money, it's just
It's a book cleanup.
projection in the deal, and you know, it falsely makes you have think you have more surplus. I mean, it's numbers in the book, and if it's not happening, you just will get it back to reality.
Right. I agree.
Yeah,
That's what I
it's not
initially
like you
thought,
owe the
you know, that's
money,
why,
it's just
so-
what's a projection in there.
It was just that we
You're
agreed to spend a lot of money on long-term personnel on the understanding that it would be reimbursed. And now we're having to admit that, in fact, it's never going to be
It wasn't
reimbursed.
there.
And we
And
just
I
took on a
wasn't
huge hit.
recommending that we not do that. That was just offered when I
that was
asked the
just-
question about the transfer, that rather than do it all at once.
No, ma'am, I
we could break
understand
over
that. It
year.
was just, that was my thought, is that maybe we could do it in increments, but if y'all's thought is just, let's go ahead and do
You're
it,
not gonna
because
have
it's
any
gonna
more
come out
money
one way
in
or
the
the
bank
other.
if you don't straighten up the
Exactly.
entry in there, you're gonna get back to what the real.
Exactly.
number
And I understand. That was just one of my,
Yeah.
maybe we
Yeah, well,
can
it's a
if
good
y'all
time
wanted
do
to
it.
do that.
Good
I'm
time to do
sorry.
it. It's a good time to do it, to just take it out. And this up. with
Make the
real-
Yeah, I'm afraid that not doing it all at once it gives us a false sense of having money to spend on other things.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, we got a false sense of what it was going to cost us to pay those very high salaries and adding their big benefits packages, because the idea was we were going to get reimbursed, and it's time to recognize that didn't happen and we've got to make it up.
All right. Want to talk about,
Shall we, or we're just going to go through the changes to the proposed, the ones that we got the printout of last week?
We can. Yes, ma'am.
And I have some other questions too, so
Okay.
we can go through yours and then we can go through mine.
If we go through yours, you may cover mine.
All right, let's go through the changes. Auditor's reduction amount. That's an easy one. Then we got the cyber insurance premium.
Well, wait a minute.
No, wait.
The first one about the addition of an emergency management director salary and benefits plus pickup, which I think means a vehicle. Is that correct? Is that what you meant by pickup?
Yes.
Oh, I see, pickup truck. I was thinking that was a,
Count
yeah.
12406.
Yes.
Aren't those the changes you were talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
so when you say 12406, are you talking about the salary package?
No, I'm sorry, 12406 is the count number. It's
Ah,
on
ah,
page
ah.
12.
If so, do we have a number in mind for what it might cost to hire an emergency management director?
Well, they plugged one.
We plugged-
We
59,000.
put, let me tell you exactly how much we put.
Yeah, right now, I'm just going off the
We
summary sheet. so-
anticipated, and it is currently in the budget, we anticipated on a step of 23.1, which would be just a little bit over $59,000 plus benefits.
And you're saying that's in this draft
Yes,
budget?
ma'am, it is in the
Okay.
current budget. It's right at $80,000 of benefits.
And so the purpose of adding this in would be that we would be in a position in the future to hire someone. But we're putting it in the 2023 budget, so we'll have a slot to hold the expense. Where did, how did we come up with 59,000? How does that compare with nearby counties' emergency management directors?
We didn't, we didn't check with what emergency management around here. We
We're-
just kind of looked at what was our department heads numbers, but we did not,
That's sort of in line with what our department heads in general get.
Yes.
yeah.
What would an emergency management director do that's not being done now? What would they
Well,
add
the
to
issue is that he would,
Or she.
he or she would do all of the planning. They would do all of the emergency plans. I mean, not sure exactly what all the job descriptions.
Any
would be
emergency
on
that
it.
happens, any
But
type of emergency, not just a
currently,
hurricane.
Rick McCluster does.
Sheriff, you want to add in on this?
And
And my understanding is
retiring.
End of the year,
Before Sheriff Mills starts, I would like to mention that I've talked with Danielle Hale at the, she's councilwoman on city council now for Ward 2, but she also is the emergency management director at the port. And she has 20+ years. She also was with Nueces County as emergency manager before then. And I've asked if she would be willing to take a look at the job description we currently have and make some suggestions and provide input so we can better develop this and have some kind of a defined idea of what this position might pay and what it might entail. Because I think our job description is
A little light.
inadequate. And we're going to meet to talk about that. People are welcome to attend this Friday at 3:30. We're also going to take a look at the fire marshal job description, and Mr. Guerrero, who's our current interim fire marshal, has agreed to come. If Mr. Brundrett is available, Brad, not Jerry. I've invited him, anyone who is open, and it's going to be at the Aquarium Education Center. I just scheduled that this morning.
I have been talking over the weekend and late last week with a number of people, some of the fire chiefs, the other members of the firefighting community. I haven't gotten around to talking to Pat Arnold, but many people have pointed out to me that she'd be an excellent person to be involved. She is sort of the expert on what the elderly and disabled in the county need, and that's something you're especially interested in an emergency. And I guess what we're really interested in doing is pointing the path toward some kind of organized process for a search for a management director.
And I talked to Patricia last Friday. I didn't have a meeting scheduled or anything at the time, but she was very willing to assist. Sheriff Mills?
I would just add that I think the job is broader than a lot of times we think about it. We think strictly hurricane season. But as you pointed out during the pandemic, Rick was involved with Patricia Arnold in some of the vaccination clinics and such. But prior to the season, Rick would always sit down before with the city and with myself, and they submit pre-storm packages. as to what I would like to see in the event of landfall, where that's already on file with TDM in the state of Texas. And that connection is established and maintained through the year. So it's not just a hurricane season type deal, but it also would play a part in oversight and trying to coordinate the activities between agencies of stuff like the radio tower and the projects that are going on. Emergency management is a pretty broad spectrum of things. And I think you're right with reaching out, Danielle and Patricia Arnold both. Those are two people that have a lot of insight into what goes on, but it would keep your chain established through Texas Department of Emergency Management up to NEMKID and submission of packages before storm, before landfall, and these type of things, and keep us updated on what our options and opportunities are. And it's not just about declaring fireworks and
So,
burns.
Sheriff, what you're
Right.
saying, is this a full-time job or is this something we're doing 20 hours a week? Or,
It's a full-time job in other counties.
I mean,
Big thing,
Yeah, but
in other
we are
counties, they do
smaller.
utilize it full time. We are small. Rick managed it before because he had multiple hats he was wearing and, everything added up to something that he could survive and live on. But I do know that he put in a lot of time prior to hurricane season and even after, and there's other activities that y'all called upon him for.
He put in way more time than what we paid.
That's probably true. That's true. There are a couple of things I would say about this. One is I can remember a number of years ago, back when I was still doing volunteer fire work, Rick would sometimes stage disaster simulations. It's like a very large event tent coming down and trapping everybody under it, for instance, or any kind of, disaster that can happen in a crowd. I mean, it could be a bomb, whatever, or
Oil spill. in
a
the bay.
oil spill. Of course, the pandemic was an example. It could be, a very large fire or anything that really disrupts. I mean, if we lost power again for an extended period, hard to imagine that happening without a hurricane, but it's been known to. Those are things that an emergency management coordinator can be spending time on when we're not in the middle of a disaster, running drills and so forth, setting up procedures. But also, I think at least something I noticed after the hurricane was how important it was to be able to plug quickly into non-standard volunteer organizations, because the hurricane hits and we lose power and all of a sudden communications don't work and none of the regular procedures work. And you have to sort of push it out onto the churches or onto the nonprofit medical organization or out in Lamar was the Women's Club and certainly the fire departments. Those things are hard to do on the spur of the moment after the disaster is hit. So you have to work a lot ahead of time to identify resources and make sure that everybody has emergency contacts and ways to be sort of sprung into action without anybody being there to supervise. That's something Pat Arnold, I think, does a lot with, for instance, knowing that you plug into Meals on Wheels immediately if you need a quick access to a list of people in town who are especially vulnerable. So
Exactly,
those
yeah.
are things an emergency management coordinator can be doing in the off time when we're not in the middle of an emergency.
I think you've got a pretty good understanding there that there's things that you don't develop that Rolodex on August the 26th.
Yeah.
You had that in your back pocket before, and that's what they would be doing.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And that
I
office
don't think
does,
this
that
position
position does have an office in the new courthouse.
And I think this is one of those you have to have. deals,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been lucky that we basically had one.
Yeah, we kind of
that was one
shoestringed
of
it.
the top rated ones in the state for years. for
And you got,
A little, for not much money,
he's put in the Hall of Fame up there. So, yeah, he did a pretty good job.
Well, one of the other things that a lot of people brought up to me, and I haven't really been able to work out whether it's practical, but if it's not really truly full-time, and if a fire marshal position is not really truly full-time, it would be kind of wonderful if you could combine those two positions. Now, I've also had people tell me that the training is just not consonant, that it's really hard to find one person who can meet both, and that may be a huge hurdle. But if we do conclude that it's not necessarily two full-time positions, and at some point, I hope we'll be talking about actually paying a salary to a fire marshal, because we're kind of having trouble there too. That, at least an option is to see whether we could luck out and find somebody that could do both.
Well, it sounds like the fire departments, at least what it sounded the other day, that
They want a peace
they're
officer.
wanting somebody that is law enforcement that is able to do investigation.
Yeah. And it could be, we'd probably be very lucky to find somebody who was a law enforcement and can do investigations and be an emergency management coordinator, but they're not totally dissimilar, we might find someone who could do both.
Well, I think that I think it's from the conversation here that we do want to look at emergency man. I would suggest that we go ahead and pencil that into the budget right now.
It's in there.
It's in
Yeah,
there.
it's in, so
It's on page 12.
sounds like everyone wants it.
But as I was saying, it's something that we definitely need to make a decision on.
All right.
Well, nobody seems to have anything to say against it today anyway.
I don't think we have a choice.
We don't have a choice.
Might not want to pay you the money, but. just-
Fire marshal, on the other hand, Mr. Guerrero's got several hours of training in different aspects of firefighting and investigations. He can investigate it. It's something that's bigger than he can handle. He, like we have done in the past, we call it state, and therefore fire marshal comes in and does the investigations. So,
Well, if we're gonna talk about the fire, marshal fire protection, which is on page 28 in the budget, I'd like to propose we add some money in there under conference or association dues. Because one thing I think that was very clearly presented by all of the folks who talked last Monday was how important the training is, that they maintain their certification. And right now, I believe we have nothing in the budget for that, and I'd like to add something, $2,000, $1,500. I'm not sure what it costs, but I think we need to put something in there to cover that expense.
I agree. I mean, that's a training heavy position. And even if we don't end up making it a salaried position, we need to find a way to make it easy for whoever takes it on a stipend basis to get a lot of training.
all right, and then in
Would a fire marshal position, or is it possible that it would be the same one that took care of the city, or maybe we could,
City's interested.
I mean, maybe we could go together and do something. or is
That-
that
Actually,
possibility?
I should have brought that up with the emergency management coordinator, because that's something else I think the city and others are interested in coordinating on that one. Maybe sharing the cost.
I talked to Mayor J-Ro about this a couple of times, once a week ago and then once over this past weekend, about the meeting to talk about emergency management and fire marshal, whether they're combined or whether the city and the county work together on fire marshal. My understanding from talking with Mayor J-Ro and from Mr. Guerrero is that the training and the requirements might be slightly different for city versus county on what they're required to do. But we certainly can look at it. I think that would be a great idea.
I think we need to look at that.
Yeah, but I really, I'm glad that I think we have consensus to put in 2,000 for training.
yes.
I have put it in there.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
Yeah, back to the emergency management, I don't know how many of y'all realize it, but in a lot of counties, the county and every city in the county have their own emergency management crew.
Yeah.
We're a oddity that
Yeah.
everybody is together in this.
We do work together, have in the past, we work together, money wise, that's.
We just
good luck
never-
on
Yeah, that one's harder, but a good
Yeah.
idea.
Good luck on that one.
To get
Oh.
an MOU or something, is that what you're thinking to?
I mean, I think they might be very interested in, right now, if we have crews in each of the 5 different local governments that need to be coordinated, that they probably were all going to be attracted to the idea that there would be a single person in a supervisory position, but they might want some input into who it is, and they might be willing to help us pay for who it is. What kind of emergency crews do we have? These are people that are full-time doing something else, but they're designated to be sort of activated when there's an emergency, I guess. So it would be like what, roads and bridges people and law enforcement,
Yes, all the department heads
environmental health, probably department heads.
and city departments we're all in EOC when we open up the EOC.
Right. And so what we're talking about is somebody who coordinates them and probably does a lot of work during the year to make sure that they're all.
That's emergency
Yeah,
management.
it's,
coordinator.
I mean,
Well,
that's, the Rolodex
that's
building that we
exactly
were
what's
talking
going-
about.
Has been going on for years.
Yeah, yeah, it seems to me like.
To
what
a
we're doing is
degree.
Rick did all that stuff. I mean, he did all of it, just didn't get paid for it.
Well, he did, but
But, well, he didn't get
between,
paid what
between
it worked.
emergency management and fire marshal, I think his salary was right at 10,000 a year.
Yes, sir.
So you're not gonna get off that lucky again.
No, But
Oh, no, that's why we're talking about funding a salary, but also why we're talking about maybe seeing if the other local governments would be interested in sharing in the process of choosing and,
Would be a good thing.
and sharing in the cost of hiring.
I think Commissioner Russo is having a meeting with one of those entities, so.
Yeah, and of
she
course,
can
we'd,
break the ice with them,
we'd
see
be,
what
we'd be
happens.
thrilled if all the others sent
And just
representatives as
let
well.
'em know, I can let the other now district and school district inform.
Sure.
Whatever you want to do. It'd be great.
what page is that on? Emergency management?
Emergency management is on page 12.
See what we got. Yeah,
And Mr. Garza, I'm sorry, I meant to mention this earlier. This is really going to be your budget, so anything you want to add to it, please do so.
Especially if you write the check. You can add anything you want.
well, we've got money in there to at least start the conversation.
Yeah.
And Mr. Garza, I would like to extend, if you have any questions, just come by the office anytime. If there's additional questions that we don't cover here, be happy to visit with you.
And we certainly hope you'll be able to come to this meeting that Pat is setting up, of course.
All right. With that being said, Jeff, not even going to try to say your last name. One of these days I'll remember it, but Jeff is with the EDC, and I'm sure that he has something else that he needs to do, and he would like to make a presentation. Would you like to make a statement to the?
And
commission?
start by pronouncing your name very slowly again.
Well, that.
Showstrom.
Showstrom.
Thank you.
Sostrom. Okay.
Showstrom.
See, I'm going to get it here one of these days.
Well, he told me a little ditty to remember it by, and so now it's just in my head.
There you go, Showstrom.
Go to a country western show and strum a guitar. That's how.
There you go. Very good. Thank you.
Phonetically had to figure out how to pronounce it. So everybody gets a pass. So it took me 5th grade to spell it and 6th grade to pronounce it. So
Okay.
Jeff is good.
And your wife's
All right.
probably still working on it.
Oh, yeah. And thank you, Judge. I was actually just standing up just to stretch it.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate that. I do have a handout just as kind of an overview of the partnership. So I don't know if, yeah. And I just wanted to come and thank you all for your time and introduce myself to you. I'm excited about being in Rockport, in Aransas County, and have been blessed over the last few weeks as I've tried to get my feet wet a little bit to meet just a ton of folks and still have a ton more to meet. I think at the end of the day, as we talk about what the partnership is, what the EDC is, and how we're going forward, my goal is to make the Aransas County Partnership a resource to you within the county and to become kind of that one-stop shop with our information clearinghouse, with our services, to work with community, to work with the development community, to work with pretty much anybody who wants to, as we seek to expand and diversify the employment and tax bases of Aransas County. I would be happy to go into this in a lot of detail, but I don't want to talk for 30 minutes. I think most of this is fairly self-explanatory. I've had the privilege of at least meeting with each of you, some a little bit more brief than the others, and I'll be visiting with you more. I do want to thank, I think with Commissioner Rousseau, the visitation that we had at the airport, meeting with Mike Gear and talking about where the airport is. I'm excited about some opportunities there. With regard to, I had a conversation Friday evening, briefly on the phone with Commissioner Laubach, and one of the things that unfortunately I have some experience in is disaster recovery. And I've been working on that since 2015 after Katrina hit Louisiana, and some work that I was engaged to do through the city of Galveston. And so anything that I've learned over the last 15 plus years, the resources. I think I love the conversation that you're having. I think the vision of having that forefront is very important. So anything that I can do on that regard, I would look forward to doing. I think with the plan of work that the partnership, and I have to thank Mike Meek for getting the foundation of the partnership to the point where it is right now. But I think everything that we're looking at is just going to be a continual evolution. I tell folks this is a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's a process. But I am fully engaged with trying to do the best job we can and create the relationships with not only you, but the staff and the leaders within Aransas County so that we can develop that rapport to where we're able to provide some assistance, facilitation, support as we go forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had any, but I just wanted to be here this morning just to say hello. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I guess you're getting off lucky, no questions. That's unusual. Okay, Mike, are you here just with him or, okay. So, got another lady that probably needs to be somewhere else besides here. You want to come on up and talk to us about what's needed and. Yes,
Judge McGinnis is in court, but she wanted me to come and let you know that the town of Fulton has agreed to put their in chair. City of Rockport put in the personnel, but they failed to put in the vehicle, but they said next year they would do that. ACISD does not have a problem with it, and then it would be Aransas County.
What page number is that, Jackie?
Page 120, 129.
And Laura, what you're saying is they've agreed to help fund a second.
Position, yes.
And
correct.
my question was 129, 125.
Well, the expenditure part of it is 129, and that's what I'm looking at.
Okay.
I mean,
And my question was going to be, is that second case manager position reflected in this budget?
It is not. That was one of the
It is.
things that I was asking for direction on. It does not affect the general fund. So we have not put it in there, but it would, I haven't put the revenues in either because I just learned that, y'all already had it before I learned from Judge McGinnis that everything was okay. So we will correct that, but it is a special revenue fund, so it does not affect the general fund at all.
But it's not funded. I mean,
The general fund does not fund this position. It is funded by the school, the city of, and the town of Fulton, as well as the fines that are collected in that court. It is not.
so
the
it's,
general
there's
fund
no
is-
hit to us at all, is what you're saying? It's all,
Well, it does. I mean, it's on, what our funding, the county's funding of it are fines that are collected.
so we tend to come out even, in other
Yes,
words,
we-
so budget neutral, more or
Yes,
less.
we-
All right, thank you.
It is a special revenue fund, so what's expensed out of it are the revenues that come into it. So.
And it's page 135.
I couldn't find it on 129.
129 is court reporter.
So that was my question. Because when Judge McGinnis was here, I thought she made it very clear. I state we needed to add that. And
Yes,
so
we
we need
do.
to get that in.
I
Yes.
will correct that and get it in
Okay.
there. I was wanting direction from y'all.
But it's it goes in, but it's a wash.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It will not affect the general fund at all. It's totally within that fund.
Okay, and the 20,000, is that for a new car or that's to go towards a new car? Or do we all?
That's what I put in for a car. It probably will cost more than
Well, I
that.
thought-
But I did not realize at the time that the city and the school and the town of Fulton were gonna help pay for the vehicle also.
Oh, great.
So it'll just be in, we'll have to bring back a new interlocal for y'all because there's an interlocal for that funding. And that will have to happen before January, before the funding starts.
Is that also a wash? Or does that come out, that part for the,
It will come out of wash. The city may not pay for it this year, but next year it will. But
no
it
hit
will
to the
be
general fund for
supported,
the,
yes.
for the vehicle either?
And I understand the school has enough funds to fund it for 2 years without a question at all.
Yes,
So,
that's correct. That's what they told.
So we'll expect this page to change
yes, ma'am,
substantially.
this will change
Okay, good.
when I.
And you'll
when
have a
I'm
help.
back.
But the,
Well, kids. Well, we'll be able to serve more.
Yeah, you're a little overwhelmed right now, aren't you?
Well, the thing is, I can handle my caseload and I can do diversions, but in the weekend, like I'm working during the weekend completely with how many cases we had to be able to make an impact. But I am excited because I have gotten a lot of new resources to come into play for this year. So
You got a place to put this
workforce.
person? Where are you gonna put this person?
Well, I told the judge that we have to put the juvenile station that I have and then kind of work with it since I have a laptop. I'll make it work.
Okay.
As long as we can serve juveniles, I'll figure that out.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We appreciate what you do, Laura.
All right, I see another gentleman that probably has something else to do besides sitting here. Gavin, come on up.
I just had a couple of questions real quick, and then a caveat. Because my understanding is that when I was requesting a vehicle stipend in lieu of a vehicle, that was going to be tied into salary. Am I correct in that? Or it would be under the salary line item?
It will, well, it's a separate thing, but yes, it does, it is part of your salary.
Okay, so that's why I'm not seeing it on this.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
we haven't,
not Done anything with
Okay.
yours, Gavin. I was waiting for commissioner's direction on.
Okay.
so
that's
start
all I
off by
wanted.
reminding us what dollar numbers we're talking about.
I gave them to you last meeting. And
know,
I've
but
been
I
in
hope you
court,
got
I
'em in your
don't have
head.
them right in front of me.
Roughly, somebody know?
Well, for his salary too. we have to pull out what he was asking.
It's hard to talk about merits without dollars. I need dollars.
Okay, salary request was 48,556.86.
I'm sorry, say again.
48,556.86
Okay. Plus a car
plus
stipend.
a car stipend of $4,800.
A year.
Is that annual or is that a monthly, Gavin?
That's annual.
I hope it's annual.
You didn't approve my Air Force, so it'll be annual.
Okay, currently his salary is for the constable is 26,701.
It's on page 30. Anybody who's looking at
No,
it.
I'm looking at a different schedule, so I'm sorry. So,
Well, I know when he was here last time that he made an argument for the increase and why he believed that was necessary. I'm fine with a travel stipend or some kind of a stipend as far as the mileage. But I think when we talk to others, sheriff, the judges, JP1 and JP2 about the workload, it didn't seem to me that there was that much of an increase. And I know we paid the constable increasing 31,003. And this position is about 4,500 lower. I could certainly see bringing him up to what we're paying the other constable and then adding a car stipend. Or travel stipend, sorry, not car stipend.
I think what Gavin was proposing was to do that full-time and give up his training position.
Yeah, he
So he would
retired
not
from the
have the
sheriff's
two
office.
salaries.
I understand that.
But is he still not comparable to the constable for the other precinct? I guess is Pat's question and mine as well.
He is not, I mean, is making less than that
Well,
constable.
Bringing him up from 27 to 31, as Pat said, is an obvious kind of proposal, but the change to 49,000 requires us to look at why one
But
constable
that
will be
would
making.
also change the other commissioner's salary too. the same.
Tanner can correct me if I'm wrong, but the other constable, Constable Two, also had $15,000 in the district court because he worked as their bailiff a lot. So when he worked as bailiff, he was also paid out of another fund. So he
would be at about
basically was, and
46,
so Gavin has
46 total.
lost that. He has lost that 15,000 because he's not doing bailiff work for district court.
But would you start doing bailiff work
No.
for the district court if we got this raise?
Now, the sheriff does that.
That's up to the sheriff.
That's up
Okay,
to.
so I'm still having trouble comparing the salaries for the two positions.
Well, ma'am, I would say that both of the constable positions are unpaid for or underpaid for the position. You're asking for a licensed peace officer, and in Doc's case and in my case, you've got over 20 years of experience to perform a function that I've stipulated before what a lot of our functions are, but ultimately you've got folks that require a state license. You have folks that require additional training above that of other peace officers. And in all cases, as a peace officer, we have duties and responsibilities that are incumbent upon us beyond what you would normally consider the constable.
Before we go too much into whether the position is underpaid, which wouldn't surprise me a bit. I mean, I'm what I'm right now trying to get a grasp on is how you compare the precinct 1 and the precinct 2 positions in terms of both the scope of the work and the outside income that's available to the whoever holds that position, and what the current and proposed new salary packages are. So I can't, I'm not even comparing apples to apples yet.
Okay. I would also, Tana just reminded me of Doc's salary, Constable 1, 4,500 of that is for serving papers. So he's getting an additional salary for doing that. His regular salary is still the 26. It's the same as precinct 2. But he gets an additional amount for serving papers.
Can we get an all-in number for income earned as a constable? And then if there's a difference between the two constables, you know.
Well, right now, the 31,000 for Doc and the 26,700 for Gavin are the all-in.
Okay, so those two numbers are comparable. They're doing the same work. And
But
the
Gavin
one
is still-
difference is that Doc is getting an extra 15 for doing bailiff work and Gavin is not.
The reason
No,
the difference
Doc does
came
not get
in is,
anything from bailiff
that,
work.
that Doc wasn't, he was doing more of the serving because Charlie was doing
He was having a double duty.
the courtroom
Okay.
duty and,
So going forward, that's not an issue. That'll equalize again.
right, and I would agree they need to be the same as far as that, because they should both have that responsibility.
And I believe Gavin said he was serving.
Yes, we are serving
Yeah.
papers. Now, that something that I've been approached with is private service in lieu of paying the courts, in lieu of paying the court fees and the service fees to the county. As a constable, I can do that. I can't wear the accoutrements of my office, but I can do that. But that will ultimately pull money away from the county coffers. Now, I can do that to offset the salary,
jobs-
but
The jobs as they stand now are interchangeable.
Then the salaries should be the same.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, so is the
I
proposal,
think everybody agrees. yeah.
is the proposal then today 49,000 a year for both positions? And they both get $4,800 a year stipend, or are they different?
No. Precinct 1, Doc has a vehicle.
He has a vehicle.
He has a vehicle, a county vehicle. He doesn't need a stipend.
So we're going to pay them differently based on the fact that one has a car and the other doesn't?
And I tell
I
you,
think Gavin wants to use his vehicle.
yeah,
Yes,
that
if
was
I-
Gavin's choice.
Because Doc is using a car that belongs to the county.
right.
Okay.
yes, and utilizing my vehicle, it works out to a lower cost to the county. However, if that doesn't happen, then I'll have to bump up fuel because my fuel budget is contingent upon the gas mileage that I will get with personal vehicles in lieu of a county vehicle.
So now I need to understand the 49,000, is that just for you or also for Doc?
Well, I can't speak for Doc. I can only speak for my elected office.
So
What
unless
I'm
Doc
asking
comes in
for
and
is my
asks for the
salary for
same
my
salary.
elected office.
But we're talking about making the two constables an enormously different
I'm
pay scale.
proposing that Constable 2 will make the same salary as Constable 1. That's
But-
all I'm proposing,
that-
and that we add a mileage.
But that makes sense to me, but I'm trying to find out what's being proposed today. It sounds like what's being proposed today is nobody's asking to change the other constable, but we're considering changing you.
The other constable would have to speak for that, for his precinct.
Sounds like the
Well,
sheriff needs to say
One-
something.
Before we leave that, I have a problem with doing a car allowance. Because I'm not sure how our insurance will handle that if there's an accident or then, can he put county, signs on a personal vehicle?
Yes. And
Can you?
yes, it is in
I
the
don't-
transportation
I have-
code.
I have just a notification of that. I don't have any kind of county symbol on mine.
Before we bought the cars that, like the one that Charlie's out there, Doc had the same one. That's the first cars the county had bought.
I
The county-
understand that.
Before that, they always drove their own vehicle.
And who do you need to ask to confirm that it's not liability insurance issue?
I think it needs,
Probably
that's a
We would
question
have to
that
go
needs
to
to be
TAC
answered.
and ask that question.
Do what?
Ask TAC on the liability of using the old vehicle.
What else you got?
Well, I would only say that it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison.
How come?
You have to look at the size of the precinct and the construction within the precinct, which is going to drive your civil filings, your evictions, et cetera. I'm looking at an additional, well, we've grown by probably over 1,000 in the last year and a half in individual rental units, and we're going to grow by, for Pearl Point, at least another 300 to 500. We're also going to have all of Copano Cove. At the end of Copano Cove, we're going to have another
1,100
1,800
units,
or,
yeah.
yeah.
That's not
So,
in your precinct.
yes, it is.
No. The RV park on the end, the trailer mobile home.
The modular house,
Manufactured.
manufactured homes.
That's in precinct 2.
That's it.
That's Doc.
And it would have to be, I mean,
Constables are like JP.
Yeah.
unless
Doc's-
only one of,
Doc's deal is precinct 1 and 2, his is
When-
precinct 3 and 4.
When I looked at when I went through all the precinct maps and drew it out, it looks like it's still in mine. If it's not, then yeah, Doc's going to need a bump too, because he's going to have another
Rattlesnake Point
1100s.
Road is a division. The left-hand side of Rattlesnake Point, precinct 2, the right side is precinct 3 and then precinct 4.
That may be where my error occurs. So yeah, we
I
may
mean,
have to
it
bump
wouldn't
Doc's
surprise
too.
me to hear that your precinct has grown, but unless I also hear that the other precinct hasn't equally grown, we're still looking at what, understanding why there would be a really, I mean, a pretty significant, what, a 40%.
Because you're
change.
underpaying both of them.
That doesn't explain why one's getting paid 40% more than the other.
Well, I think that's something.
I mean, maybe the only answer to that is the other's not asking for
I
more
think
money, but
everybody agrees that they need to be equalized though, as
Yeah.
far as
Whatever we decide needs to be the same. A car
Did
allowance
you
is a
bring it
different
back with
situation.
the salaries being the same and put in mileage stipend? I know previously with some of the department head positions, there used to be some sort of a travel allowance for driving within the county. And I guess that's not being done anymore. I don't see it on our budget sheet, so I assumed it went away.
No, we still have travel in there. We can add his, that's where we would actually add his.
So that is something we're already doing for other
Yes,
department heads or other
Yes,
officials.
ma'am.
Okay. So that would answer the question of the insurance liability. Because we're already letting others be reimbursed for when they use their vehicle on county business.
Liability, maintenance of the vehicle. We need to, used to constables throughout the state of Texas were really private citizens that got paid by the county to do things. That has expanded tremendously. And so consequently, it's like they're, you know, they're true, they've always been true law enforcement. But I think with the liability and issue, you know, he blows a tire, he strips a transmission or something, who's paying for it? Is it a county expense or his?
Oh, that's it. That's why he's getting
Oh, yeah, if he gets a stipend, it's on him.
Yes, damages to the vehicle, normal maintenance, et cetera, those are mine.
If you get a stipend or a mileage or whatever, that's just flat.
So do we want to leave it at the 31.3 or are we looking at?
I think,
both of
my
them?
opinion, they both need to be bumped up 48.
They certainly do a lot more than they did 10 years ago.
So I like to keep a running tally of how much we're adding. So currently, it sounds like currently we're doing 27 plus 31 and we would be doing 49 plus 49. How much, can you give me a quick number for how much you'd have to add to the budget to pencil in what we just talked about doing?
48.5 so for Doc, that would add 14,000. For Gavin would be about 22,000.
Does that count the stipend? No, that's plus the
That would
stipend.
be another 5.
So
just
total
rounding.
3641.
And I know it seems like a large amount, commissioners, but I would like to add that would put both constables at what you pay starting brand new rookie, every other peace officer in the county.
What's it put you at compared to what other counties are paying their constables?
Yes,
Nearby.
I presented that at the last.
I know,
one,
I just don't remember what the numbers were roughly.
And I do not have the numbers in front of me. I was in court.
You've got to
this morning.
memorize these numbers. These are critical to you. They're your lifeblood. I mean, honestly, I don't have strong feelings about what the number should be because I'm not well versed in what constables get. My main concerns are things like we have 2 constables. What's our explanation for why they're different? That's the kind of issue I'm raising. And then I always just want to know whatever we're doing and whatever the reason for it is, what does it add to the budget so we can keep track? But I have that number now.
Mr. Hutt, you have some.
I guess that's it. Or is that, you want to talk on this?
Yeah, I'd like to. I think I have a little bit of a problem. We knew the salary going into the position and we applied for it. Don't have the other constable here who's asking for money. And year in and year out, you have 4 positions. You have 4 positions who don't really see much raise in pay, and that's the clerks, the county tax assessor, collector, and the treasurer. It seems like everybody else, especially if it's a guy, they come in, we're really up to giving them
Okay.
salary increases, but
Thank you,
other
Mr. Hutt.
individuals are not.
Thank you.
Well,
Mr.
I
Hutt.
agree with what Jeff is saying, so I'll just repeat, I'll add my voice to it. It is an issue that you came to us and asked to be appointed to fill out a term and knew the amount that you were making, and it's something we should take into account. I won't say it's a disqualifier, but it's an issue worth raising.
I would, may I answer that?
Sure.
I was the only one that did. You extended the period. You extended the period for applications. And why do you think that is?
Yeah, good point. On the other hand, nobody else knew that it might
And
be half again as
At
much
the time,
pay.
he still is being paid by the sheriff's department also, is that correct?
That is correct.
When we put the word out that a position is open, it's always a concern to me that, we're only going to attract people who know what we say we're going to pay. And then if we appoint somebody and then change the pay, it's important to make sure we're taking into account. Now, did the pool open up? Are there other people who would be interested at that new higher level? But then, you come up for election and I guess that's when we decide that.
And we've had the primary and I'm the only one on the ballot for the general.
Yeah, but at the primary, again, nobody knew you might be getting a half again pay raise.
They're welcome to run against me in 2024.
That might be when the raise made more sense.
Anyway, all right, Gavin, I guess that's all we need from you. We'll be working on it
Okay,
come up
I
with.
was unclear on the vehicle portion. Are we still looking at that?
I
Or,
believe so.
I did put it in there for 2020.
okay, I just needed to specify because if that wasn't approved, then I was gonna have to bump my fuel, my annual fuel. Because I'm basing staying at $2,000 on getting 50 plus miles to the gallon, and I won't do that with a county car.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I appreciate y'all's time very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Darren.
What did you put in, Jackie,
Gavin.
what did you put in for,
My head.
Lisa's vehicle or whatever it was?
4,800. That's what he
4,800.
requested.
All right. Where do you want to go from there?
Want to go to Kevin? He's here.
Okay, I'm sorry, Kevin, come on up.
Okay, where's that one
Page
on our,
two.
but on the, I'm looking on my summary sheet. That's where. I
So the
like
only
to take
difference
notes.
between the last budget workshop and this one is I am requesting an increase in my professional services line by $5,100. That is for an extended warranty for our voting equipment. Currently, we don't, well, currently, since our conversion, we do have a 1-year warranty. So if anything does happen with that equipment, we can get it replaced or fixed or replaced within that warranty window. I do think it is a good idea to have a warranty on our equipment. This new one, there are a lot more moving parts. I will mention there are 2 counties that I'm aware of that have moved to the same type of system. And one of them has sent back, since their March primary, has sent back 30 pieces for repairs. And another one has sent back close to 8.
Is that the new voting
Yes,
system we just are going to be using?
yes,
The one the state legislature is making us use that has the paper backup and the auditable trail and so forth.
yes,
So they've sent those back for repair following the primary, you said.
correct. The
Have they-
primary and then the runoff, and they also had 2 special elections this year.
And how did ours perform during those
During,
elections?
well, November is going to be a first election with this equipment, so we don't have anything to base it off of.
Yikes.
I will say during the substance testing of the equipment, we had 1 piece that I had to send off for repairs. So out of the 72 pieces, only 1 of them, but the equipment hasn't been used yet.
Yeah.
And I will say, if we don't purchase the extended warranty before our current warranty period is up, they will charge us an additional $3,000 or more just so they can come and inspect our equipment, make sure it is to operating standards. And if there is anything that does need to get repaired, they'd make us pay out of pocket for those repairs first before they cover the equipment again.
So $5,100 is pretty cheap.
It is. And I did get some estimates on repair costs. Depends on exactly what would be wrong with the equipment, but it could run from anywhere from $450 to $900 for repairs.
So tell me again what the warranty that you need, you want to add for is 5,100, did you say?
5,100. And with my math and those estimates, it's anywhere from 9 to 11 pieces a year would basically cover that cost.
And our history is that we've had problems with
Had
them in the past.
Well,
Anyway,
Since I've been here on our current equipment, but it's very different equipment than what we're moving to. Our current equipment, we've only had to send off for repairs, I think maybe 3 of them since 2018, since we got it. But this new equipment is a completely different thing because there are so many more moving parts involved with it.
have you seen or heard from other people that have the machines, what their experience with it? I mean, if they didn't have the warranty, what might it cost to send them off and get them worked on?
Well, that's the estimates that I got from Hart, from $400 to $900 per repair. But it does, of course, vary. And those counties that I know that have sent their equipment off for repairs, they're in that warranty window. And they typically do purchase that extended warranty every year as well. So they don't even get a bill for it, really.
The other thing we have listed on your summary sheet is asking for a part-time employee for 29 hours a week.
Yes.
What does that work out to annually? roughly. Wild guess.
Look through my. The number I have is $20,574.76.
Okay, so that would be, if the two together would be adding 26,000 to this draft. Neither of those is in this draft. Okay.
But we do have 11,500 for temporary help. And I think we looked at a part-time employee a year ago in the elections department and thought that it wasn't warranted.
The 11,000 is their election workers.
Okay.
We were looking at a full-time person 2 years ago.
Does 20,000 include burdens?
That number I gave you does not, but there's not any health insurance involved. It would just be
Yeah, there wouldn't
taxes.
any help, so it's not.
Oh, it's, yeah, there's no benefits package because it's 29 hours a week.
Right, the
Right.
only thing they would be eligible for is retirement.
Any other questions for Kevin? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Pam, are you sitting here just because you're interested or you got something? Okay. Come on up.
So I would like to request to make a change to my assistant's position and the floater position. So currently I have an HR assistant who's at a pay group 10, which basically the job description and her salary line is just doing basic secretarial work. She does sub receptionist, she does some spreadsheets and things like that. I would like to move that position into an HR generalist and move it to a group 15. That way I can get her more trained on the aspects of everything that the department does. So that if I'm not here, she's perfectly capable of handling everything. And then she would also be more prepared to move into a director position at a later date when I do move on. And then in the process of doing that, we found that we don't really have a significant need for the floater position anymore. So I'm willing to ask if you could just let that one go to make up the difference of what it would cost to increase the HR position, which would give about $25,645 back to the county in my budget line item.
And did the HR assistant you said is currently pay group 10?
Pay group 10.
And step, where is she?
It's budgeted currently at a 10.5, which is 34,365.
When you say
And
giving back,
I'd like to move it to a 15.1, which would be 39,852.
so when you say giving back 25, is that net of?
That would be, that's including
That
benefits.
would
and
be
everything.
taking away the floater position and then the increase, so it's a net.
So with those two changes, you would still be saving 25,000 a year?
Yes.
So you don't think you need the floater anymore?
Currently, there hasn't been, we had a significant need for it during the COVID and all of that happened, but recently we haven't had a significant need for that position. We had several departments that took advantage of having that available for a long time. But most of those departments have now hired someone else in to go ahead and fill their spots and stuff. So we don't really have a need for it. And I don't have room, as you all know, in my office for a third person. So my last floater has moved into the judge's office. So that position is open currently and I wasn't planning to post for it. So.
Her assistant, I can guarantee you, is doing a remarkable job for the length of time she's been here. I think she's deserving.
Any other questions? if you're all okay with it, then I would like to submit the job. I haven't done the job descriptions for it, but I'd like to put it on a future commissioner's court once I get them ready.
Go ahead and do that.
All right, thank you.
All right. Yes, Sheriff.
Just the first thing that came up shortly after we did the initial presentation was Dr. Bingham, and I sat down and visited. And he came to me under the jail's budget, was asking for an increase of $1,500 a month in his monthly fee, which would basically double what he's charging us to come to the facility. But in trade for that, he was wanting to put in a second day as well, which probably a third of the complaints that I get from inmates that go to jail commission or to lawsuits involve health and medical treatment. And I don't have a problem with another day from him. I think, it's a small price to pay to protect and insulate us against, challenges of inadequate medical care or something. So he would propose that he would visit 2 days a week in the jail instead of one. And it was after my initial presentation. And so that's over the year, what, $1,800 or $18,000 more in the jail's budget.
It's a reasonable request.
What happens to your budget if we grant Gavin's request and he stops and he resigns his position with you?
I would still have a training position, or I would hope to continue to in that deal. But what happened in sitting down with Gavin after he initially started, I did that for 24 years here as constable, 14 years ago. We might have had 4 evictions a month. And when Gavin stepped back into that, now we were carrying a lot of Charlie's load while he was out, but I didn't sit down and track it individually to see what we were out. It just had to be done. But I think in the first couple of weeks when Gavin came back, because of parole point issues in other places, he was having 8 and 10 evictions a week. And I don't know what the volume is now. And I'd be curious, even between the two courts, just what their monthly average of evictions is compared to what it was 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years, I can say that load wasn't there at that time. The other change that has come about is that you've got an investigator in the county attorney's office who has picked up some of that civil process that we were splitting and sharing between all of us. And Doc was doing a lot of that when we weren't available because they would drop it out late in the afternoon. And that was some of Doc's extra money that he was making. Where that is right now, I think Andrew is doing most of that service. And I don't know how much Doc is picking up after Andrew is off or gone for the weekends. Those are questions that might help y'all come to a decision. What is the load? Not just in civil process, but also what are they doing eviction wise? Because that takes up, while not everybody, you're not out there physically supervising the removal from all apartments, you are making 1 and 2 trips out, and sometimes more than that, to do an alternate service. And I'd just be curious what that number was, but the JP should be able to give that to you.
But Gavin's position, the answer there was that position would just be open up at the same salary that you're paying him, and you'd put somebody else in it. So
It
that's
was
not a
probably-
change.
Yes.
Okay. That's
But
just
what
that's a-
Gavin got tied up in a dilemma, realizing the job was more than my previous experience would have said it took. And I didn't track Charlie's stuff that, the 2 years he was out, and we were just handling it both through civil process, through my warrants officer or whoever. And I do know Pearl Point was quite a development. A lot of the rental properties are, while they're scattered around, I know Pearl Point, when they started out, and I don't know if they're trying to set a trend and say, we're going to adhere to this pretty strict. There was a lot of activity there. But I think the JPs could provide those numbers for you. And you can see a
I was
change in
really just
volume.
trying to figure out if there was an offset available but it sounds like there's not. I mean, he'll leave the situation in your office unchanged, and we're just looking at his
Well,
proposal.
it's Gavin just wanted to make, I think he realized he didn't have the time to fully commit to both to the degree that he would like to perform. But he, I don't know if it's the fee and the income there. He's dealing with both of them right now. And I don't know whether he has not sat down. We have not discussed him doing any bailiff activity in the courtrooms. Don't know if that's something he would entertain or was interested in, or just because of the load that was there, he's just trying to get it up to the starting salary that we're paying any other peace officer in the county is my understanding of the mindset. But I would intend to backfill that position with, in my office, for the training coordinator and the lieutenant that handles our complaints, with somebody probably internally, which would just domino effect that I'd be looking for them, but another patrolman or investigator, whatever.
Yeah.
The only thing it would do would be to allow Gavin wouldn't feel like he was shortchanging one or both of us if he's able to make the transition one way or the other.
Yeah, I never did think that, I always had some issues with the constable working bailiff work, because if he's doing that, he's not doing the constable job. And, you know, Charlie was the one that was doing that, but
Well, they were both doing a certain amount of bailiffing before, and it was never my call to determine whether or not Charlie felt he was performing his duties as a constable adequately or not. That was individual choice he was making, was looking for the opportunity to stay in contact, I
a
think,
lot
with
of
the
that
public.
stuff, they do it after 5 o'clock or serving.
That's, yeah, 14 years
Whenever they can
ago,
catch
mine was
people
evenings
that
and
they have to
weekends.
serve.
And now it's turned into, within the state of Texas, there are constables offices that are 3 times the size of my office.
There's a lot of them that have multiple deputies under them.
Oh, yeah. You can go to Harris County, some of their constable deals are, they're larger than the sheriff's office.
Do you know what constables get in neighboring counties?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Sheriff, you just mentioned something about, and I'm sorry, I was going to the page, that the physician that comes to the jail has asked to serve a second day, or you believe there's a need for them to come in a second day. Is that correct?
Both, yes, ma'am.
And
I
then-
don't see any. I think it's a win-win for us, and that if he's going to visit, then my request to him would be that one day would be at the first part of the week and one at the end.
Okay, and what impact was that having on the jail's budget then?
It would be $18,000 a
18,000
year.
extra.
More?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and would
that's
we
not-
have a savings
What
from
I'm gonna-
indigent
what,
health?
We would actually transfer that from the healthcare sales tax. They pay for those services. They reimburse the county for any of the medical or prescriptions or inmate medical.
So
where they
that-
qualify.
That should be a wash and not hit the general fund, is what you're saying?
Well, it will hit the general fund, but we will have a transfer from healthcare sales tax to cover those costs.
So it'll be a wash.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
But will the healthcare sales tax, I mean, if he's getting a flat X amount of money for that extra day, do the cases or the visits that he's taking care of, will they offset that, or kind of do
Well,
different
what-
things? We're setting a price, but it sounds like you have to have paperwork including saw to be able to transfer from healthcare sales tax.
That's only
or-
for indigent care, isn't it?
All right.
Okay.
Is it, what, can you give us a feel for how common that is? Do a lot of inmates have insurance, or is it, can we mostly assume they're indigent? Yeah.
No, it's not.
It's the isolated big bills that we occasionally get that just cause me to cringe.
Right, not the doctor showing up once a week on
Yeah,
the show.
not the doctor, not the medication type deals, but it's when we transfer somebody out and they require surgery and 5 days of recovery.
I just look at it differently if it's 18,000 to add to our list of running totals of things we're adding, or if that's really a wash, it may be in between.
It will be a wash because what it will do is increase our transfer in from healthcare sales tax and it'll be a wash.
Only in the case of indigent inmates,
No,
right?
ma'am.
No, for
No, ma'am,
everybody?
For any medical.
Okay.
And then Sheriff or Jackie, whomever, the salary amount went up $100,000 about from the last draft. Is that because we moved the deputies up a group?
That's the 2 added positions. That is one of the things that's on my list that I
Okay.
needed your direction from. was
Okay,
whether
that's
we're
good
gonna
because
leave
those were required and I think there was consensus to add the 2 jailers.
So are those,
But for the jailers, yes.
those are,
We also in the sheriff's office have them, but the jailers, yes.
There's 3 sheriff requests on your list of items to cover. I just need to know, are they already in the budget or are we talking about adding them to the budget?
For salaries, the 2 additional salaries.
2 additional deputies, job
and the
classification
jailers are both
change,
on there. Have we done the group adding?
and 2 additional jailers.
Like I say, part of the discussion, and we've looked at numbers last week and over the weekend. If there's any discussion of a raise to the detention officers in the jail, I would ask that you forego that and apply that to my patrol side where I have fewer employees. But I needed to establish a different pay grade between my deputies and the jailers. Last year, when y'all were gracious enough to improve the
Yeah.
detention officers, it put them on the same scale.
Yeah.
If you come to Aransas County and you have both license and you're applying for a job, you're going to take the job in the jail where it's air conditioned. You're not fighting somebody in their backyard for the same pay.
I'm not arguing with you about the merits right now. I'm just trying to figure out what the
Well-
dollars are and if they're already in the budget or proposed to be added to the budget.
The group increase is not in the budget.
And it would be how much per year? If you add it. And that's the one you call job classification change?
Okay,
Yes.
Increasing one group, it would be this is a sheriff's office? $10,000, $11,000.
Okay, and then how about the 2 additional deputies and 2 additional jailers? Is that in here already?
They are already in.
Okay, so no change for those. Those are already in this draft. Perfect, thank you.
But I don't know. I mean, I think we agreed because the jailers were required by the state that was good, but I don't know that we approved 2 additional deputies. I mean,
The jailers are not required by the state.
I thought you had made that case.
No,
when
ma'am. I
you-
said they are not required by the state. The district judges are wanting them in the courtroom, and that's where I needed them.
For jailers, you're saying? Jailers come to the courtroom to provide
Okay.
security when the prisoners are present, or is that?
They're wanting a jailer detention officer in the courtroom while inmates are there.
Right, I mean, this is jailers who come to the court because prisoners are there. Got it.
Yes.
And then the additional deputies, I also apologize, don't remember what we discussed. Did you
It's
make a
just- it's
pitch?
A lot of a growth issue. In 14 years, I've not requested any additional officers in the office. And with what's going on in Coconut Cove at the Isles of Rockport and the change in your annexation laws, the cities are not going to be able to step out and assume control over your growth areas. Those are going to stay, I think, a responsibility of the county. And I need that just to grow with the growth.
How many deputies
Well,
have you got now?
In my precinct alone, I mean, just the RV parks just grown like.
I think so. We were RV and everywhere now, but the Isles of Rockport is off and running. You've got the
You
the
got
fourplexes in
Islands- yeah,
Coconut
Islands,
Cove.
Rockport, Sure.
How many
It's not
deputies,
exactly RV.
how many deputies have you got total that you would be adding to? So
Our total positions, badge carriers is 23 in the sheriff's office.
you'd be going from 23 to 25.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, my concern is we have had citizens come in and complain about the lack of any sort of patrolling specifically in Commissioner Cheney's neighborhood.
Really
And they
everywhere.
cannot get an officer to even come out and sit there on Griffin Drive on an intermittent basis to try to enforce the speed limit.
Yeah, so it seems
We-
like an easy case for 2 extra deputies.
If
That
they
would
show
fit.
up.
Well, but Commissioner, I'm not even going to venture a guess how many roads are in the county. Everybody wants additional patrol, and we have a board in the back that we place close patrol. We have an officer that's assigned to special close patrol activities. We can't stay everywhere all the time, but we do go to Griffith Drive. And I'll make the argument that I spend more time on Griffith Drive in an annual total than anywhere in this county, other than Highway 35 north
I'm
of the
glad to
Causeway.
hear you say that. And I'll mention that to.
Come out Wednesday morning.
See them at the best.
Wednesday morning, there will be, I'm going to say 4 or 5 officers. We'll be there an hour, hour and a half. We'll be there in the afternoon. And that'll go on for a month and a half of the school year before we back off. It's just the traffic pattern is there. We have to do something to control the traffic. Now to sit and watch a stop sign, that's a common problem we have all over the county. And, you know, my directive is that we spend our time in the neighborhoods. I'm not out here. The only time that we actively enforce traffic laws, speeding and such is on Stone Garden activity. And that's an interdiction activity that's paid and reimbursed to us by the state of Texas. The rest of the time, my intent is, that, yes, we're in the subdivisions, but we have grown and continue to grow in the subdivisions, and we're not going to see annexation pick that up. you're going to get more of those calls. Bahia Bay is another place that likes to see them. City by the Sea request additional officers. It's not isolated to Peninsula Oaks and Griffith Drive.
And I don't know who Mr. Russo was talking to over there,
The
but.
two gentlemen who came into,
Oh, yeah.
Mr.
Oh, okay. I have, yeah, we have people that are on Griffith Drive that have problems with it, but it's always just like you said, it's in the mornings or somebody's driving 70 miles an hour down there. We got that.
That's
in
what they were
all of the
talking.
precincts.
And they weren't talking about it at school. They were talking about, apparently there's a straightaway on Griffin Drive that it continually has very high speeds in excess of the limit.
I could probably write as many tickets in Coconut
Oh, yeah.
Cove on Rattlesnake Point Road for the same argument. Long straightaway, stop signs don't really do a lot to deter that. They'll slow down and roll through them.
But
If you want,
we
if you
hire
want
additional
to
deputies,
put me in a position to address all of these, then let me request 20 more officers. I think that's an absurd request on my report because I can't, we can't sit on every corner and every street, but it's not isolated to Griffith. And it's, I hear it from Coconut Cove. I hear it from, like I said, Bahia Bay, City by the Sea. We get out in Lamar, Park Road 13.
Do you get a lot of requests from Lamar?
Ma'am?
Do you get a lot of requests from Lamar?
Park Road 13 occasionally will come up and then, but not too much in the rest of Holiday Beach and Lamar, no.
Hmm.
As far as traffic and excessive speed would be Park Road 13 is an issue.
They go out to Lamar and go very fast. They're going to hit a deer.
We're just law abiding, or else we're more
Law
careful.
abiding.
We're better at
But
not getting
no,
caught.
We faced this, 5 years ago, I guess, and I think we put a couple of deputies on it, made a huge difference.
Like I say, we
But-
will assign them to that and you'll drive that activity down for that time period. And then we move
Then
on to
wears
the other
off.
places. It's not, I'd like to say it was just one chronic place. No, we've got them. It's like burglaries. They're everywhere. You'll follow the pattern. You'll tend to where it seems to be hot at the time. You'll correct people's behavior. But I'll point out as well that 90% of the time when we get into those places, the first or second person we stop is the person that came in here and complained.
Mhm. It goes right
That's
back to
okay.
the
And a lot of
speed
times they
bumps.
tell me, well, I was the one that complained. Yeah,
You're fitting the
we're all
profile.
guilty of that.
okay.
We'll get on our own street and tend to go a little bit over and sometimes a lot over and then we want to start offering excuses for, well, I was really in a hurry this time. I don't normally do it. Well, we're all a part of that behavior that we're asking to be corrected.
The deputies in Peninsula Oaks and in City by the Sea and Palm Harbor and Bahia Bay and Islands of Rockport, not so much because it's close community. But, they're out there a lot. They're out there a lot. Lots of times you don't see them, but they're out there. And, 2:00 in the morning, they're out there.
Like I say, we leave door
Like
checks on
afternoon,
places
they're out
where we do close patrol and let people know that we've been there. We've been in the trailer parks. An example of the chronic violation that we don't seem to curb is Holiday Beach or north of the Causeway. I pulled tickets last year and over 60% of the tickets and citations that we wrote were north of the Causeway. But we're still stopping people for going 85 and 90. We catch people on the Causeway running 85 and 90. And we write tickets and we send them to court and it hadn't impacted or impressed people to slow down. And that was, we were killing people out there every month in collisions. Now, because of the passing lanes and the bumps and some revisions to the construction of the road, we haven't had the fatalities out there where we were having 2 years ago. But we were not slowing people down by writing citations.
That is not a proven way of.
That was real discouraging because it's not just my office, but DPS spent a large part of their time out there as well, trying to correct that behavior. When is enough? I'm asking for 2. I could use more. But like I said, it's the first time in 14 years I've come to ask to increase the size of the department, both because of the annexation issues and just,
Well, they're got a lot more people. They're just busier.
well, we're at the pre-Harvey census, I think, where we were at before. And so the growth is back. You're continuing to build. They're gonna fill these spaces up. And I just request at least 2 people in both positions. The deal in the courtrooms is not, if it was misunderstood, I apologize, but it is not mandated deal by the state. There is no legal deal.
But the judges are of the position that they'll return them, the inmates to the jail and set them out 30 days if we don't provide the adequate security in the courtroom.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
All right, any other questions from the sheriff?
The only other thing I want to add, we got in a discussion earlier about your emergency management and the fire department, fire marshal and combining jobs. While this may work well and you may find somebody that can serve that, getting the job done and paying attention to detail are two different things. And an example, I think, of John's position in his project management, your tower deal that we're going up with at 188 and bypass through the emergency corps of the fire departments, I'm finding out in the last couple of weeks, did not include all the equipment that we're going to need radio wise to make that work.
Oops.
And now we're backing up because, John's got 9,000 different projects and we're signing, we're having other people cover this thing. And the detail wasn't in there, I don't think, as to what everybody needed, what needed to go into that thing. And now we're going to have to come up with some funds, I think, for the equipment. But it's just, we overload.
So that'd be a nice thing
sometimes.
for a coordinator to have on his desk to keep track of, to be a
Well, but
go-between to the
Just
project
not
manager.
not to go out and try to find your emergency management coordinator and make him your fire marshal and make him your
Yeah, get him too
sanitation
scattered.
director and everything else.
Well, like on the radio, Colin spent a lot of time on that. Just, I think that I think the emergency management coordinator or director is very important. Just need a good job description.
You do. And I think the two people y'all talked to and talking about will be instrumental in trying to define that for you. But there's a lot that goes on outside of hurricane season because when Rick kept talking about, he'd pick up the phone and tell them to, drop the package and I want the big package. His reference was to the stuff that we submitted beforehand so that Tatum knew what we wanted and needed. And we weren't Saturday morning trying to say, I need this, this, and this, and keep adding to the list. You pre-construct a drop package for an emergency. And that's what Rick would submit every year ahead of time, both for the city and for the sheriff's office and everybody else.
Jeff Shostrom said he would get with the people in Galveston about their job descriptions. We might be able to take a look.
All right, close to lunchtime. You want to break for lunch? You want to work through it?
Yes, Anna, just a quick question. Anna?
Anna? Yeah. Oh, a
You
tax
can probably
calculation?
answer this quickly. Do you have a budget book in front of you? Or, well, it's on page 26. Maybe Jackie can answer it. What you got? All right. So page 26, I'm looking at the appraisal district towards the bottom, service and charges. And I saw that for 2023, that went up about 8.5%. Could you just explain that, if that's driven by the appraisal district and why?
It is a appraisal district and they create their budget and then it is split based on the assessments by entity. So we pay our
Pro rata.
portion based on the assessments.
So we just are automatically forced to accept whatever the appraisal district budget is.
I do know the budget, but I'm not a voting member. But it's based on, just like I have one also with the other members. I send out proposals to them.
No, we do have
I'll support our office.
each local government that works through the appraisal district has the right to representation on the appraisal district board. But it doesn't get separately ratified by each government. It's just through our representative.
But it might be nice in the future to know what budget is that they're proposing. So I'll just see
Yeah,
about.
they have
getting
public,
to-
they only have one meeting a year. It's like in the spring. One a year. Can we hear from Jeff? Because he follows this.
Thank you, Anna.
I don't know about the county, I've never seen it happen, but I do know that the budget, the school board, Carson might be able to, Mr. Wright, the president at the time, but the appraisal district went to the school board and had the school board vote to approve the new budget.
Have they ever come to us? I don't remember.
I've
ever.
never seen them come to us.
So that's something that the school board has demanded of them, with presumably we could demand of them, but we have not in the past.
You know how that is.
Everybody who puts in towards the appraisal district also has a representation. The only entities that put in and have a representation were
The
our
big
appraisal
ones.
district, are the county and the school district.
The city stump.
No.
A
Oh, anyway, we don't need to know that for today, but yeah. But in any case, we do have representation,
Okay.
but so far it hasn't turned into a veto. Or even advice. No, that's something different. The ones that do the budget, they don't do much about the budget, really. Everybody does the rest of it.
Right again, do you want to break for lunch or do you want to work through it? I have a 3 o'clock. People coming from out of town.
I do have a deadline with the paper also.
I'm okay with working through.
All right, let's keep going. What's the next?
We talked about all of that. Unless y'all have something, we have not put the personnel in the elections. Were y'all wanting to go ahead and add the part-time, the 29-hour?
Yes.
That one was the 26,000 total hit.
Well, it would be 21. The other 5,000 was for maintenance. So yes,
Yeah, but I mean, new somewhere, wherever it fits.
right.
It didn't sound like,
So I hear a no and a yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I don't think anybody's saying no.
I am.
Are you okay?
Yes,
Pat's
I'm
a
saying
no.
no. So
Right.
Collins here, do you want to do his schedule?
Colin's kind of on the hot seat. His is one of the biggest items here. We probably need to start grilling him mercilessly.
Colin, you want to come on up? That's what you.
Because I'm still kind of where I was, which is, oh, not this year, surely.
Okay.
Let's talk about fiber optics.
Okay, so the auditor and I sat down after the last budget. Obviously, that number I gave y'all shocked everyone out of the room. And so we decided, let's cut it down. And we just put a flat rate of 500,000 into my capital outlay budget. That's only about $171,000 more than what I currently have budgeted for this operating year. That mainly would become now something that we could use as a match for any potential large grant. We've got the COG working on what they're doing as middle mile, but we still have to come up with money for last mile that gets service to the facilities. If we don't get something in there, if we don't get any intention in there, chances of us getting a grant are slim for any kind of last mile services.
I don't know what
So,
our chances are, but I was at the meeting in Victoria that they talked about the money that the comptroller's office is in charge of and which the COG represented us there too. And one of the things that came up is we're the only one of the counties that have a basically shovel-ready engineered project for the money that the grants that they possibly will give out. The state budget a certain amount of money for extended rural broadband, which we qualify for, but I don't know what our chances might be, but we're one of the, maybe the only one that has a already engineered project to apply for that grant.
and so we want to put, we're trying to put funds in there. And so 171,000 over what I currently have in my budget is not a huge increase as opposed to us just paying for the project without any kind of grant.
So forgive me, but I thought that this line item meant that we were talking about adding 500,000 to the budget that we've got here. Are you actually talking about adding 170,000 to the
So-
budget that we're looking at, the draft budget of today?
My
Is that right, Jackie?
570 line was where the largest increase of my budget was. That is my. what
No,
is
but to
the-
keep this brutally simple to start with, if I start with what's in this draft budget that I'm looking at, and we do what Colin wants here, which is a $500,000 number, is the change 170 or is the change
No.
500?
We originally with the budget he proposed was 1 point something
It
million.
was like 1.2.
We reduced that down to the 500. So what you're looking at right here is what he is proposing at this time.
What's in the book that I'm looking at already has the full amount that this 500 that he's asking for. So if we were to say yes to this today, this book would be unchanged. I'm not talking merits now. I'm just trying to figure out where we are.
This is where we are right
Status-
now.
status
We
quo
reduced
is
it from
500.
1
Okay.
million down to 500,000. Yes.
All right. So if we were to, for instance, not do this, we would be talking about reducing what was in
Reducing
this
it by
book.
about
Gotcha.
171,000. But yes, this does include the 500.
Yeah, go ahead. That's all I wanted.
All right, so where we look at the year to date for 2022, it's about 40,000 under furniture and equipment. And this is where this line item is falling. So
Correct.
that's why I'm focusing. on it.
And
And I'm on page 14.
right.
Projected for this year, you had in 328,000. So we are significantly shy of that. I don't know if there are certain contracts that fall at the end
There
of
are
the year.
several projects that I haven't been able to do yet simply because of supply chain issues. We've got orders out there that we have not been invoiced for or POs issued simply because I can't get the hardware.
But the
So,
anticipation is
then-
if those products or services are available,
Then I'm gonna.
the year to
spend
date
this-
will go pretty close to what the
Right.
projected is.
We anticipate spending the money, but right now my supply chain is very hard to get stuff.
Because I just thought there's a large discrepancy between year to date and what was projected, and maybe we could reduce what was likely for next year.
Right.
But from what you're saying, that's not a
it's
good
baked in.
scenario.
It is not a
Okay.
good scenario.
And the reason it went from the, say, 328 or whatever it was before is because like it shows the variance there of the 171,863. That's what you're talking about for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Last
That's for
mile or
for
whatever.
the fiber optic. yes.
Okay,
Uh,
thanks.
I'm sorry. go ahead. On a separate thing, we're moving into the new courthouse mid next year. Do you have a budget of what it's gonna cost for us to move in there? And because that's gonna be in that budget.
I do not have a budget for that yet, as I have not sat down and John has not approached me on that. We sat down and during pre-planning and figured out what I needed for the actual like networking of the building. The cabling's included in the cost of the project. But we have not actually built out because we don't know yet the way to project what's going to be in there. Most of the audio video stuff has been included, but as far as getting us into that building, we don't have a cost yet.
Because you're gonna have you're gonna have additional servers and all kinds of things that come in.
Most of our server equipment is going to move into there, but our networking equipment, we are going to have to, unless we feel like shutting this building down, because I can't install a network in that building without hardware. We are going to have to acquire hardware and network equipment to bring that building online prior to us even stepping foot in there unless we shut this place down.
Well, I think that even as we go through this budget, that it behooves the court here to at least some sort of handle on what anticipated costs will be, because I can see that going into a couple $1 million easy. But I don't know what's covered in the grant,
Right.
and in the loan.
And I don't know what all is covered in the grant either as far
We
as.
need to find that out.
And
Because that could have a huge.
And the
Good
fiber
one.
optic grant stuff will not cover that, but as far as any grants for the building or any insurance proceeds.
I didn't mean grants, I meant the loan.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way, I guess I've never thought through what it takes to move a one courthouse into another space. Are you going to have to double up on equipment, and then do you get rid of the equipment you left behind and somehow sell it off? But how do you make that happen without losing function for days, weeks, however long it takes?
Some of that will be doubled up equipment, and then we'll turn around and have to do a surplus auction or go through the sale process that county allows us to get rid of excess and surplus equipment.
Is there such a thing as, renting equipment to tide you over? I mean, if there's equipment here that's good enough to be used in the
One-
new courtroom, can you send some of that over to the courthouse and then, limp along on rented stuff here? Is that just not practical?
It's
Pretty
not
much
really practical.
You got to buy the stuff
most
and then sell it
places-
used.
Right.
You're really going to need a budget for that,
I do.
especially if it could
and
be a couple, I mean, we don't have a couple of $1 million extra in case it costs that much to move you in.
I understand that. I would have liked to been involved a lot more heavily in some of the process of that courthouse project. But a lot of it was not brought to me to discuss.
I mean, I'm again, not talking merits. I'm just saying the
Sure.
money in there, and this may not be a year in which we have the extra $170,000 to do fiber optic grant chasing if we're going to spend millions of dollars moving from one building into another.
I understand that as well.
Is it seriously could be millions, or are we talking about hundreds of thousands?
A couple 100,000 possibly, because we're going to be looking at outfitting three network distribution rooms in that facility, plus all the wireless access points, plus all of the,
It's gonna be expensive.
But a few 100,000 expensive, not a couple of million expensive, probably.
and I will have to get, it could be a few 100,000. But
Yeah.
again, I will have to get the numbers from John of what's already been included. I know we've included a lot of the cabling, the power components, the racks, and the hardware to mount stuff, but I don't know if they
We don't
included.
have a
'cause
lot of
we
time yet,
proposed
but we
them.
will be voting on this budget in a couple of weeks, and that number really ought to be in this budget. I mean, we know it's happening.
Yeah, and that wasn't given to me to try to put into this budget when we went out saying, hey, what do we need in this budget? And it wasn't given to me to
I mean,
anticipate.
if it's not
either.
in your budget in your department, is it in somebody else, some other department's budget, kind of a moving expenses?
No, ma'am. If anything, it would be whatever, we'd have to find out what, like Colin said, is in the courthouse, in the project itself.
But I mean, what are all the other departments who are in the courthouse going to do when they need to spend a gazillion dollars moving from one building into the next? Where's that going to come from?
We're not gonna need money to move from one place to the next.
I mean, the courts are going to, I mean, all of the people who office here are going to have to move out of here and into the new courthouse.
It's in the plan for moving.
If it's in the plans for moving, is there a budget somewhere for moving expenses?
Yes.
Okay, so they conceivably could cover.
But what
Colin.
he's saying is he can't put
Oh,
that one up.
you're
without-
talking about just like movers to move stuff,
Oh,
and I,
No, that's
Well-
already.
so,
my
but what
understanding is
Colin's
already
special problem
projected.
is that he's got to have them running both at once, which the courts really don't have
Right.
to do. And therefore has to have a whole separate backup.
We're not
of
gonna do all that
expensive
cabling
equipment.
stuff ourselves.
The cabling of the building is built into the CO and the cost of the building.
But he's got to run
the-
two
the Physical
networks.
hardware to power all the cabling that's put in. They asked me the manufacturers and everybody we want, but I don't know if they actually put numbers into that budget. When we started doing this
And
budget.
you talk about a couple of 100,000. I mean, a big, just, we spent, how much did we spend in the sheriff's office whenever we did that? That was close to 100,000 right there.
About $100,000 when we redid that building.
Moving from the old jail into the new one, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, because the sheriff's office is gonna stay the same, but as a comparison, this is 5 times or 10 times bigger than the sheriff. I don't see you getting in there for under at least $1 million. I can't see it. I mean, I don't get into that a lot of stuff, but I know, it's just really expensive.
But if that's the case, we really need a line item in this budget to take
does
on
it need
that
to be in
very
my budget
predictable
or in some
expense
other
about to
line
happen in a year. Certainly right in the middle of
Commissioner
2023.
Cheney, are you like talking about all of new computers for everybody and
I'm
stuff?
talking about
'Cause
where we
we'll
open the
take our-
doors and can work compared to
I
what we
mean,
have
we'll,
right now.
we'll move, when we move all of our computer system with
This
us.
isn't
So-
talking about the
Well,
He's
computers.
just
This
talking
is
about a
talking,
server.
this is talking about the network hardware that
Yeah,
all the
this
computers
is a
plug
much-
into.
I mean,
This is part of the
building,
infrastructure of the
totally
building
different.
that to my knowledge, and up until this point, and they brought it up, I've never been asked to build a budget number for as far as putting in my line item. If I need to do that, I can start working on that immediately, but it was not something,
I don't think it would go into the general fund. I think. it
I
would
don't
go
know
into
what
the
line item it
courthouse
would go
bill.
into, or if it would go into the building fund.
I mean, maybe it's covered in the courthouse construction budget I just would like to have it confirmed to me that it's covered in some budget somewhere.
We would have to verify that equipment and stuff is in there. But I don't foresee it going into the general fund. That would actually
Shouldn't
go
go into
into
the
the
general fund
construction.
Yeah,
line.
exactly. That's not what I was asking. I was asking.
That's sure what I
is-
was
and
asking.
The money we're going to spend in next year, you know, do we have an idea of how much we're going to have to spend on IT in that year, you know, in this coming year? So is there something here that we need that we can put off until that building is there? You know, I mean, it's just, I realize it's it's apples
Right.
and elephants, but it's still money. Stuff we're going to have to face.
Coming back around for the general fund 2023 budget item, to me, I don't feel like we can put off. I mean, we've pushed the fiber project, and we've tried, and it's expanded, grown. We've got the COG involved now, and they're doing the middle mile. But we've still got to find a way to fund the last mile. And so
And we're really going to be facing that in 2023?
hopefully, I mean, our project, as they've said, is shovel ready.
Mhm.
How long before that project becomes, we have to
And I think the
re-engineer it.
The COG is actually, I'm not sure the impression, what they presented at that meeting. Are they
Right.
working on that as a separate, because that is the project that's shovel ready.
Right, but is, in what they've sent out in most recent stuff is they're gone back and for what they're doing for the NTIA funding is middle mile. Our project originally was shovel ready with last mile for our facilities included. But
And I
I'm not
think, wasn't
seeing,
that through an ARPA money that they were getting from
I
the state?
don't know if we ever included our AR or allocated our ARPA.
Not
funds.
ours, but I think there was special funding that the
I don't think the COG
state was
got
giving
ARPA
to the
funds for it.
COGS that had initially been planned to give out to the separate counties.
I don't
Well,
recall.
that's- I think
There was
that's
some kind of
because
IT money, but I
budget
don't remember
stuff.
if it was ARPA.
Well, it might be good to at least
I would,
ask John Strockman for a copy of the budget that shows what was included.
yeah, maybe, I mean, it would be really good if John could come and talk to us because I really need to understand if there's a giant bear hiding under a rock in the way of unexpected move-in expenses. I mean, I gather some departments, it's just a question of, you know, guys cart your desk over and you move your paper over. But Colin's got a special problem that he may have to double up on extremely expensive equipment and then sell it off used. That's a big hit because he can't afford to, he can't turn the network off, run across town with it and open it back up over there. He has to have them both running before he shuts the old one down.
We're gonna get a hold of John and see if he can come in and visit since we're going to stay here a while.
Yeah.
Could we move to a couple of other?
Sure.
Okay.
Colin gets to get off the hot seat for a couple of minutes.
You can go cool down in this air conditioned room. Okay.
Yeah.
So on page 46, parks, there was an addition of 30,000 from the last proposed budget that we looked at in June to this, and I believe that is for park equipment, and I just feel like what we're looking at with added expenses, park equipment is not a necessity. So I would recommend we pull that out of there.
I always thought our rule was we don't do parks.
That has
And
been
this
my
is,
rule.
it's
I
a
know.
tight year. This doesn't seem like a good year to start doing parks.
Can't blame me for trying.
It's gone.
No,
Agree.
yeah,
How much?
just
How much
pull
did
it
we
out,
just pull out?
30,000.
Okay.
Pull it out.
pull it out.
I took it.
I would agree. My position's always been if you're gonna do a park in one precinct, you need to do them in all of them.
That's right.
And then
Well, either that or put them all in 4.
under, on page 47, the extension officers,
On page what?
47, just the
Okay.
next page over. When they did their presentation last time, they had said they had not received, just for the 2 extension agents, Megan and Ginger, that they had not received an increase. And we fund them a portion and then the rest is paid by Texas A&M. And then the question came up about performance appraisals to base those on. They had turned those in apparently earlier this year, but We didn't have copies of them, and I did get copies of them this morning in my box. And going back about 2 or 3 years, both of those agents have received high marks and been rated as highly effective, meets all the performance standards, no deficiency, exceeding expectations in many areas. And so I would propose that we give a 5% increase to those 2 extension agents.
So what's it,
Can
is
we
that,
accomplish that with the step money though? Have they never been given a step increase?
No,
Or do
that's
they
what they
not
said.
No, they never
qualify,
gotten
or
COLAs.
do what?
They've received COLAs prior, but they have not gotten step increase.
They can't get a step increase unless we get a performance report, right?
That's what we
Right,
based
but we
the
just-
step increase on, yeah.
so we just got the performance review and they're now eligible? Is that how that works?
Well, and that's what I'm proposing, just a 5%.
Yeah,
Then
so
that will go under the 50,000 that we have, that we use for step increases.
and
So
what
that's,
I would
so there's no
go
budget
on, the
hit if
step
we,
deal.
No.
if
there
we give them a
should- there would not
5%,
be any
that's,
Budget hit on that.
okay.
It would fall
How
under the
many
50.
steps would- How many steps would be approximately?
That would be 2
2 steps.
steps for each one if you give them a 5%.
Hard to believe that that's long they've been here. They haven't been-
And then I can make
they're in the
copies of these
library.
available to go in there, please. But files, okay, thank you.
Okay, so that one's a zero effect. Because it's covered already in
Right,
another,
it's already
okay.
covered under the 50,000.
Okay.
Yes.
So did we ever make a decision on Gavin deal? We bounced it around here a lot. And I agree with them. I have a little problem with, he asked for the job at the old pay, but I can see that they're in the phase.
I'm hesitant, but my main concern is, it didn't seem like a good idea to make such a distinction between the 2 constables.
I think they should be the same. Yeah. Pay whatever they are. I have a hard time bringing them, either one of them up to what he asked for.
I agree that I'm not sure I'm sold on, I mean, it seems like they probably need a raise, but I wish I could recall the numbers he brought, or that he could recall the numbers he brought to us about comparable pay scales for constables in nearby counties, because I don't remember being persuaded by his numbers last time.
I would say that
Maybe
we should bring them both up to half of what he asked for, which is between what they.
I would agree with that. I mean, 31 to 48 is
split the baby.
17,000, so
If we even them,
8,500
like
each.
say, bring them both to the same, whatever it takes to bring them to the same as what he was asking. Say halfway, meet him in the middle.
I think he would be going up, he was asking to go up 22. So if you brought up him 11 and Doc 11, and then also gave him his car stipend.
Yeah,
Because
but I
he's not being
think we
provided
need
with
that-
a,
Need to be the same.
well, no, but Doc is getting a free car from the county, so they're
Yeah.
not going to be the same.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the car allowance, but.
Oh, I see.
But-
So
but
he
the
he would
number
only
that
need
we
to go
pick,
up
we
7
wanna pay
to
him-
catch
we
up.
want to equalize.
Yes, sir.
Right. They need to both go to 31 and then bump them up. Because
So
the
he was-
difference
he
in
was
the-
wanting to go from 31 to 48.
48, yeah.
Which is a 17,000,
So-
so half of that's like per capita. 8,500.
Take them up 8,500, that's fine.
So 31 and 8,500.
Yeah.
It's 49.
39,500.
We've got a 39,852 is a group 5, step 1. Law enforcement, huh?
And I'm being reminded of what I found unconvincing about his comparable numbers. What, that he was assuming a very high population for Aransas County with no basis. And if you look at comparable rates for constables in, say, Nueces County and nearby larger towns, that the rate he's asking for is actually competitive and a little above competitive for cities.
Well-
So I just don't think he made the, I mean, I'm supporting the 50%,
Well,
approach,
yeah,
because I don't
I
think he
would-
made the case for
Population
100%.
would, the population would probably increase the need for additional constables, not necessarily. I
No,
don't
that's
have-
true. You have to look at the size of the precincts, although are all counties split into, do counties have different numbers of precincts? I guess they
No, they
do.
all have,
Well, we only have
We
two
only have two.
constable
They only have
precincts.
4, but I
We only
mean,
have
you can
two
have
for
I
constable.
mean, Houston, I'm sure
Precincts.
Houston
You're talking
has
about
more than two
precincts, just two.
constables. Yeah, so maybe the per capita thing isn't so, but the fact that constables are getting something like $44,000 in Corpus Christi suggests to me that that's not the going rate in Aransas County.
Well, and, you know, the argument that that's base for a patrolman or whatever, but like I say, elected, get back to the deal when you ask for an elected office. And,
Yep.
you know,
And the primary's over and it's too late now.
I would say we bring it to that point and look at next year, try to get all the numbers, whatever other people are doing, and
So
try to
you wanna
get
go to the
numbers,
15
try to get
plan?
numbers from, it sounds like Alma might have something like that.
Because aren't those salaries shown in there by the county size, Alma?
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, so we could look to see.
But I can see an argument for looking at precinct size, service area size, rather than county size. Because a big county could have a lot more than two constables.
And it's only elected officials. I agree that all employees probably need a salary evaluation, but as you well know, I think it was before you were even here. The cost of the salary survey, I've had on the treasurer's listserv going around with somebody that they do. They vary quite impossible.
What do you mean quite?
Well, I think we pay about 50 grand in 12 years ago.
No, it was 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Who?
Sam Patricia.
Sam Patricia got all kinds of money.
That's true.
For all employees.
Yep.
Based on their jobs.
And you can, you know, if you want a common denominator, you can base it on population, where they got 4 constables for 30,000, or where they got 2 constables for 30,000 or 25,000, or whatever it is. You know, I mean, it all has to do with the number of citizens you got.
But per constable, not
Per
per
constable.
county. Yeah. Well, Gavin's proposal was a $22,000 raise for himself. If he gets 11, what do we have to raise Doc to make him equal? Not counting the car issue.
Well, again, you
It's
gotta-
less than
you
11
gotta take
because, right?
into
Because he's
account
already
that-
11.
That $4,000 of Doc's salary is for servicing.
They're both
Doc.
supposed to, they're both
But
supposed to be
so-
served.
So if Gavin was getting the $4,000 for that too, he'd be at the same level. as Doc.
Yeah, well, that's what we're saying. Whatever number we come up with, make it for both of them.
Oh, I agree. No, I think that's
The
right.
group 15, step 1 is 39,852.88. That's,
I would say we bring them to that and look at going further next year.
I agree with that.
Okay, I
proposal,
can live with it.
Commissioner
That'll work.
Westerling. And just eyeballing this population or counties with population 10,000 to 20. Oh, yeah. that's right. Shoot. Well, I agree with Commissioner Castelline's recommendation. We
Because
can look at it
It's
for
kind of
next.
hard, I don't know, you really have to research in there because even in corporate, the constables have deputies under. them. So
Quite a few.
how you compare that, but it would be-
Well, I mean, the other point he made was that it would be nice if they were comparable to the lowest paid patrol officers. And I don't know, Sheriff, do you have a view of whether that's a fair comparison? I don't know enough about what patrol officers do versus what constables do to say whether that's a fair comparison.
Everybody's sharing the same life.
So if anything, they should get a little more, but his argument was they should get as much, and you would agree that as much is not too much. Yeah, okay.
Okay, before, I just want to mention, I found the page in here, counties with populations 10,000 to 24,999. And for constables, they range from, looks like a high of 58 to a low of just under 5,000. So that's quite a salary range, but it looks like there are many that are in the 20, 30, and low 40,000 range. So I think the figure we came up with just
In
now,
the ballpark.
39 or 38, is very good. We would be right in the median of the counties our size. No, sir, it does not give that. It just gives the constable. In counties
And
that
they
are
could have-
10,000.
They could have 2 or 3 deputies under them getting paid.
Yeah, some of them maybe, it's hard to say if these positions are really
But
comparable, but at
this
least we're
gives us a
in the ballpark.
working idea.
I just, when you get elected or appointed to an elected job and you come in and ask to raise the pay substantially, I have an issue with that.
So that's an argument for a 0, not a 50%. So,
Well,
but we're compromising.
Well, and it might
My
have just been
argument
the
for
salary
that
was
is-
very low.
is
Maybe we'll
he's
see if
Yeah.
other
talking about
people are interested
might-
in it.
retiring
or
from the
something.
sheriff's office.
It might spur
Yeah.
more
Constable's job. full-time.
interest.
So he would be drawing retirement.
Well,
Or something.
but
You
that's a
can't really
different
get
issue.
paid.
That's a different issue. I mean, you know, what's the value of the job?
That's my 2 cents.
And I think we ought to agree to look at it again next year. See, because, you know, the job's changing.
Well, that'll give them another whole year to come up with better data.
All right, John, you ready for the hot seat?
You'll cool down once you're in here for a minute or two.
No kidding. It's about 62.
So what would you like to know? I just got a
Well,
little bit.
We're,
of an
we're worried about what it's going to cost to move into the new courthouse, especially the special costs that Colin is going to have because he has to basically set up 2 parallel systems. He can't just shut one down and open a new one.
Understand that.
So we don't have any feeling for whether the part of the building budget might cover some of that.
The building budget does not, it'll cover all his infrastructure, all the, the internal wiring.
Sure.
And all of that.
But if he's got to double up, that's something we have to come up with in the budget someplace
Right.
else.
And that
Until we,
wasn't-
until we can adjust, if we get additional funds that we can use that for.
What about insurance funds?
Right now,
I
we're in the
know.
middle of negotiating for insurance.
Yeah.
Right now, we're at 10.7.
Now, is that compared to what it was, I think 6.2?
No,
or
it's six,
okay.
6.2. We're at 10.7, which covers
Cool.
the budget plus a little. Not a lot, but a little.
We're working on a
And
little
I'm-
more.
I'm working on more. We're not done with it.
Well, the infrastructure, would that include servers and things like
No.
that?
It's about a $900,000 budget, and that includes all your internal wiring, bring it all to the server rooms.
Yeah,
all
from,
that stuff.
from the insurance company's point of view, what they're doing is compensating us for replacement value, given that it's more expensive these days to build instead of,
It's-
you
if
know,
you read in their-
market
in their
value of what.
policy, yes.
And so they don't have a line item for how expensive it is to have to run 2 parallel internet systems. That's just on us.
Colin, did you get we didn't get anything for what equipment you had in the building, right? Or lost in the building?
Most of the equipment that we had in that building was yanked out of that building. We were able to salvage a good chunk of it to keep the network going.
Okay.
But in this building, we had to acquire new equipment to get us
Okay.
operational.
Is there anything that's coming from here?
In this,
going there?
I can't take anything out of this building while it's in operation.
Okay.
In order to keep this building operational, we have to install new equipment, just like we did with this facility.
So
when
he's
we
sort of
brought it
stuck with
online.
selling what we have here
Okay.
But you were talking
used
about-
at a
Okay.
loss
I
because
don't
he's got to
understand
have.
Why you would
Understand.
have to sell it, though? It seems to be like it would be more economical for
Well,
us.
it might be better to keep it,
And then as we needed it in the new.
but that's even more money.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it is a benefit in future years, we're talking about coming out of pocket to basically double up on a computer system. Because we,
So what we
can't
be
just yank it
doubling
here
up
and move it.
on is the physical network hardware. The servers and everything are gonna stay where they're at until we are ready to move into that facility.
that is something you can sort of turn it off and turn it back on.
Yes, we will be
So what
turning
is it-
servers off and there
what is
will
it
be
that you
some
can't-
downtime for several hours while we move equipment.
What can't you do that with?
I can't do that with any of our wireless access points that actually allow like the laptops sitting over there to work while we're here. I can't turn off the networks, otherwise the network switch hardware, which shuts down all our phones.
Okay, those are words that mean very little to me, but so give me an idea, how expensive is all that?
A single one of those devices is anywhere from 5 to 10 grand.
Okay, but I mean, if you needed me to write a check to buy everything you're gonna need to buy special in order to keep two parallel systems working temporarily together before you kill the old one, how big would the check need to be?
I'd have to look back at the infrastructure proposed for that facility.
But again, a couple 100,000, not 2 million?
Couldn't be 2 million, but if things are going up as they are, it could. I can't predict.
But you have to predict because we got a budget. I mean, we have to come up with some kind of prediction.
You're asking me to come up with numbers on the fly and
True.
I can't do that right now. At this point in time,
But we have got very little time left. We're gonna have to have some kind of number for that.
I can work to get those before the next meeting, but I
Yeah.
cannot do it right now.
Because it doesn't, I can't think of another bucket to take it out of. It doesn't reasonably seem, I mean, unless I mean, of course, if we're getting extra money from the insurance company, we thought we were gonna have to limp along on 6.2 and we're really gonna get 10.7. We have some slop in the budget and it may cover things like this.
The budget, when you add up the bond and the budget and the contract,
Oh.
we're just a little above even.
Even with the 10.7, because I thought we were at even
Well,
without
you
the
have a
10.7.
$23,615,000 contract.
Right. And we were gonna
$13
get,
million bond, that means that's $10 million.
right, and that was gonna be 6.2 from
Yeah, it was gonna be 6.2.
insurance and 4
Plus,
million.
and the other month, difference would have been made up by FEMA. In this case, once we.
Oh, right,
exceeded-
when you get the extra insurance money, it
FEMA
comes
goes
off
your
the top of
FEMA
FEMA.
money.
FEMA goes.
All right, so
away.
that's not extra money.
So we're just a few 100,000 or so over budget. Right now, we got a
Still,
little extra.
a few 100,000, maybe exactly what Colin needs.
Colin get together.
Oh, sure.
Come up with the number.
I've got you, there's other things that we have to consider, like furniture and, I mean, most of the stuff is coming from, we're gonna move it out of here.
Sure,
and
but
move
if
it
it's
there.
gonna get bought in 2023, it needs to go in this budget.
Well, I'm hoping to get it in the insurance
Right.
proceeds.
Can you get us with extra help and stuff? Can you get us where if you get a 3 or 4 day window, Friday and Monday, we close, get a holiday or something that where, how much of this can we get enough over to start up the courthouse at the time that we need to move it in and not just do this here?
It is
I
pot-
don't know. I don't know.
It is potentially possible that we could gut this building over 3 or 4 day period and get it operational over there.
Just do it like a heart transplant.
But
so
we would have to be all hands on deck
So-
ready that Monday.
So Colin, could you hire additional folks to do that?
Right.
And if we're talking August 2023, so if it gets closer to a Labor Day
You're talking
weekend.
August 2023, but the generator's not gonna be here. till
Yeah, we won't have a
November.
generator until
So you
November.
really can't move into it until November.
Well, shoot, pushing it to 2024 and we're all set.
Plus the transformer.
Anna is
having
asking, is it
issues
gonna affect all the
Yeah,
ancillary
right.
offices
Not
as
at all.
well?
It would.
So if
Transformers
you
and
take a
cable.
4 day holiday, we're talking about a
We would
4 day
be-
holiday for everybody.
We'd be shutting the entire county down for me to do this. Because I got to take the core network offline, take it out of the elections facility, take it and move it into the courthouse. And I've got equipment over there that's got to come out of elections into the new courthouse.
Not as bad as Harvey.
Well, if we're down, we're down. That's not good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would be
think the
down.
Other
The
offices.
phones and everything
aren't
would
as
be down.
Critical of moving them all at the same time.
I don't know. I think Anna's over there having a heart attack at the idea that the tax office shutting down for 4 days in
We're not
August.
talking August. We're not
November.
talking August.
November, with any luck, 2024.
No, we'll be in. We're moving right along. The project
Well, I
is
would
going
say
on.
the
We've
two
got
of
some.
you all need to get your heads together and come up with some numbers. that
Sure.
are realistic.
So the more I push it off the needle of 110.7, the more we can afford to do that.
So once you get above 10, we are actually money we get to keep,
Right now, we got a few thousand, 100,000 that we
get to keep.
We
It's
get to
actually
keep
in excess of
and
what we
use
budgeted.
for
Okay.
some unknowns, change orders that come up. Right now, everything seems to be falling into place, but that doesn't mean something's not going to happen. Or something's going to be missing.
That's why we're still working to try to get more out of the insurance.
Sure. Keep going until we,
And that's another reason why we need to make sure that we don't take our reserves down anymore. We just have to. We just don't know.
you don't know, but
Well, and speaking of that, does this, I mean, we got a rough reserve hit number from Jackie and we talked about a no new revenue rate. Does that include a COLA or not this year? No COLA this year.
We never do codes until the end.
But I'm not talking about whether we're doing one today. I'm talking about, does anybody contemplate doing one on August 29th? Because it doesn't sound like we can afford it this year. Okay, just checking.
We never do the colas. We'll get the basic budget.
I'm just saying this year, not happening now or not in 2 weeks, not now, not in August.
So red tax, no. I've done this is the rates that we can do without.
Are we through with
I
John?
think, John, that's all we had to have.
okay.
Thank you, John.
Everybody
Why
have a
don't
good
y'all get
afternoon.
together? Talk about those numbers.
I've got numbers there for the no new revenue rate, last year's tax rate, tax rate, and the voter approval rate, and the revenues that it will generate.
Okay, so the no new revenue
We're
rate,
not going to be adopting today or even proposing, but I an idea if everybody wants to look at.
no new revenue rate,
Where did you say about a penny or something?
down here on the bottom.
This is a penny, this one will, this is.
You're saying
a
to
penny
increase.
over- Yes, this is no new revenue, this is if we adopted last year, this is a penny over, and that's the voter approval rate. We still have increments that note that voter approval rate only includes the 3.5%, am I correct? We still have, because we have not gone over the no new revenue, and with the new changes, we get to bank our increases. So we have actually got banked like 10.5%. Not would ever recommend that, but that's what we have available. No new revenue rate or the voter approval rate is 3.5%. No new revenue rate is what the budget we have right now is based on. I feel like, just like I told y'all last year, going into fund balance, because I don't feel like we're gonna really, these are all projections. I still don't think we're even going to go in to what we got last year. I think we got enough in revenue that we should probably come out even, if we hit fund balance, which means the numbers that I put in this budget will actually be high, the fund balance. Just from.
Yep.
Do I think we should go to a billion? But if we do the revenue into the year, we're expecting to be.
But leaving it at 6 something. Didn't you, what did you say it would be after the hit? It would be still 6 million something? Okay. I say no new revenue.
I think we have some revenues that we can still look at. The property tax, sales tax, transfer. Transfer. No, the increase with the sheriff, with the jail. That will come from that.
Mhm.
So. Kind of look at we want to leave what we have now and revenue rate.
Yes.
Like I said, this is
I know. I'm telling you what I'm advocating strongly, unambiguously and strongly.
I would
Have
say
you
the
had
1
any-
cent.
Found any other explanation, as you said the other day, that the no new revenue rate wasn't raising what we had last year and why that is?
I did look at that in last year when I did this sheet for y'all. I put more into debt service on the sheet and less into the M and O. It was me, and it was the 300,000. So it's not looking like we're adding more, we're breaking even. I had anticipated some of the fund balance of debt service that we ended up not using. So it was. That's what the difference is. That's what we're not seeing. When we get like 300,000.
So Jackie, I thought I understood this chart better, but let me just ask a couple of questions about it. So when you're in the third row, for instance, the 0.01 increase, that is a 0.01 increase of exactly what? What are the units?
1 cent, and the only thing that.
1 cent in what? I mean, it's
1 penny on the M and O rate. What this would do is increase your no new revenue rate by 1 penny.
okay. So an increase in the tax rate charged to the customer. Okay.
1 cent. And if you look down at the very bottom, I'm saying 1 cent on a average $300,000 home is going to be increase their tax.
No, yeah, I wanted to make sure it wasn't something like a 1% increase in the projected, collections after values or whatever. 1 penny to the rate. Got it.
Jackie, first 2 sections both say the same thing, I think, don't they? Recalculation of 2022 no new revenue rate, recalculation.
M and O is
I
different.
just made the red under here is where I.
Jackie, so if we say at the 0.39, we could go to 0.39 without tax, without a vote.
You're below your voter approval rate.
Yeah.
Because the voter approval rate.
Well, I think that we've got enough unknowns coming up with the new courthouse and stuff that we ought to stay at or near the 0.39.
Oof. We're going to have people in the street with pitchforks if you use that courthouse budget as an excuse to
Well,
raise their
no,
taxes.
I understand that, but we still got to get it in the courthouse,
And we
want
promised we'd
stick
do it without a
strains-
tax increase.
stick strains and
It's not the
counts.
courthouse, it's the inflation and.
What's everything?
I didn't make that up. He said courthouse.
No, I know, I'm just saying it's not really going into the courthouse because that's totally different. fund.
No, I understand that. And I understand what Mr. Lawlock is saying. But I think to be wise in this, we need to look at maybe somewhere around that. That's just my opinion.
I think the 1 cent increase is more realistic.
So that would put us at what?
0.359739.
No, okay.
Which would be less than last year.
It would be less rate,
Yes, less rate,
but a
but
more
higher.
tax.
4 cent, well, 3 cents less.
Go 2 cents.
Mm-mm. 0.
And the first one,
2 cents.
we're reducing the rate because the appraised value went up.
Right. So the number, the 0.348411 number, that's what you have to put the rate at to make your total collections the same as last year, not counting what was built last year. So it is like when the appraised values go up, the rate decreases enough to completely make a wash of the increased.
Because of new values have a little bit of an increase, but as I said, I put more in debt service last year and let
Yeah.
the way that
But anything we charge over 0.348411 means people's average tax bills dollar-wise go up. And that's what the public does not want. They want us to live within what we get with it. When we get a modest raise every year because there's an extra stuff built during the year, and that's not counted in the no new revenue tax rate. But what people clearly want from us is to stop using the fact that property values naturally increase every year as an excuse to raise their taxes. We should counteract that with the tax rate.
What y'all feeling? I have.
I think 1 cent increase.
Yeah, 35, 9, 7, 3. That'll work.
Well, and I think the rate, first one, the 0.348411.
Sounds like we may have a 3-2 vote.
And then I still have one more item on the budget.
I'm saying a 3-2 vote is what's in the offing for a few weeks from now. And if it looks to, I mean, if we're sure that there's going to be a majority on this court asking for an increase, I want to go back to the budget and start hacking stuff out. We got no business raising people's tax bills.
I feel like no difference than, my opinion, no difference than what that 1 cent makes, the no new revenue rate. We're looking at $12,000. That's not.
I didn't follow you.
But weighing the liability versus the benefit.
That's the argument that everybody always makes. Oh, it won't be
The
very
school
much.
district's
It'll just
already
be
announced that it's
every
just going up
year,
some.
every year. And this school
would
district
like to
just went
think
up
we
8
should be-
cents.
You know, we're all Republicans.
We should be the
fiscally
ones holding the
conservative
line.
people.
I will. And the paper that will cause us to have a public hearing for the tax rate. So that will.
Also on the 22nd. That, where you put that, yeah.
Gavin, you have something to add?
Bad time to ask us to spend any more money and bad time for Colin too.
Well, a couple of things. I apologize for not being prepared earlier when I spoke. I got a lot of duties and they took precedence. But I thought about it and I said, I'm having trouble explaining the message. And I thought we might approach it from a new perspective, beating a dead horse. This is the listing for a basic brand new patrol deputy, starting at the starting rate of 48 and some 48,000 and some change. Every duty on that is also one assumed by the constable. If you go to the Code of Criminal Procedure 2.12, who are peace officers, it gives you a plethora of listings of who are peace officers, constables among them. To 2.13 in the Code of Criminal Procedure, it assigns the same duties and responsibilities to every peace officer in the state of Texas. If we are functioning essentially the same as a patrol deputy with the addition of additional duties not included in that job description and additional educational requirements that we have to meet, I have a difficult time taking between 2/3 and 3/5 of what a basic patrol deputy makes. Now, if you can articulate to me, y'all set the budget, but I'd love to know the articulation for that.
I think you heard it already.
I really want to address the hot fund allocation too, and I understand somebody here said they had a 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
meeting.
All right, Gavin, we take that under consideration.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So Jackie had given us different requests and some of the items I want to bring up. Chamber of Commerce asked for a 20% increase in what their allocation was. I feel that the Chamber of Commerce is well funded by the city. They do some work for the county, yes, but most of the attractions, most of hotels and the restaurants are in the city. And they just received 372,000 from the city for next year out of the hot funds. I also would like to point out that most recently, the Chamber of Commerce has been very active in the political spectrum, and we understand that, but we are not in the process of funding those sorts of activities. So I would like to propose
Where?
that the,
Political activity.
with the PAC,
100% overlap.
The funding that we give the Chamber of Commerce only, it funds advertising
Only
in
advertising.
Austin and Houston. It doesn't go to their general, it's a dedicated funds to advertise it in those two areas because they previously weren't included in the rest. And since they started doing that, the numbers that are collected show that it's helping.
all right? And Jackie had said that the Friends of the Fulton Mansion had asked for 30,000 this year. I believe that 15,000 is a reasonable request. I know that for this year, they have not even asked for that allocation yet. And I know I have spoken to Alan Lee and Joe Fox with that organization probably 2 or 3 times. Now, maybe by now they have,
They have.
thank goodness, because I just spoke to them a week ago to remind them. So I think leaving them at 15,000 for this year, which is what you have in the budget, is fine.
What would it look like if you changed them to 4%? What does that look like in dollars? Or what, I guess, what would it have looked like this year?
It would be what
4%
they
would
get,
be the
the Center for
34.4.
Arts.
So, I'm sorry?
If you change them to a 4% of the allocations, it would be 31,400.
So pretty close to what they're asking.
What they're
And
asking.
If you
but
compare the venues, they rank as one of our top thing that people go to. Compared to the museum and the art museum and
Yeah, I agree. I'm a really big fan of the Fulton Mansion as a draw. It's one of the most special things people
I
come
don't
for.
recall seeing any reports on their tourism numbers for their visitors. I mean, I've only been here for a year and a half, but I don't remember ever seeing them come and do a
they've given
quarterly
them to us
presentation.
before, Preston.
Well, I think leaving it at 15,000 is fine for this year. For next year, sorry, for 2023.
Or 50.
And then on Le Mardi Gras, I know that they asked for $3,000 more because they said they believe they would do more advertising. It's not exactly a detailed marketing campaign. But as long as we are just paying out this money based on receipts that are given to us on what their expenses are, but then I would also like them to come and do a presentation to show what their numbers are.
I think they usually do. I thought Mardi Gras did give us a report for sure.
They may give you a report, but I don't think we've had them actually come and
Okay,
speak to
well,
us,
we
so
can-
we should
I
ask them.
can Be requested to do a presentation.
Okay.
'Cause They have given us a report.
Okay, we have the ones that Jackie said they aren't qualified. One was the volunteer fire department, and part of their reasoning was that the income from Oyster Fest had gone down, and I've suggested, and they're supposed to bring us a proposal from Oyster Fest, because we've never funded them, and they're one of the biggest. And
Right.
I mean, if their funds are going down, if we can help fund the advertising for Oyster Fest, that would leave them more money to distribute to the fire department to.
Switch it from Mardi Gras to.
No,
the Mardi
no,
Gras.
add it.
I mean,
That's
this
what
would be a separate deal. That's not on here that since Fulton had asked for the money that possibly we could fund some money to Oyster Fest, because we've never given them anything. I kind of thought that it was, maybe they don't want us to be involved, might be the root of the whole deal.
Oh, we're not that involved with anybody else.
No, we don't tell anybody else how to
No,
advertise.
but
I
I
would
don't know
support
why, but I thought if
that.
the
They don't
funds are
like giving
down,
reports.
that
how
they're
much
funded
money.
the fire department, that's
Yeah,
kind
if
of
they
a
can
way of
support
getting
Oyster
around.
Fest.
what the way they asked for it doesn't qualify, but if they can change their request so that it does qualify by making earmarking it for
Because
for
they're
ads.
spending their own money for advertising.
I don't have any
If
problem
we
with
can fund a system with the advertising, that'll leave them more money
That would
to
be
distribute to the
That's
fire
a great
department.
idea.
And hopefully they will. I said something to them about it after I saw this deal so, I mean, like I say, we're doing it to the others, and they actually do benefit all the fire departments by having a place for them to fundraise. They actually still are probably the only, I don't know if they're the only one, but they have few, if any, for-profit businesses that come in there during Oyster Fest as far as food and things like that. Most of them.
I
are all
think it's a
nonprofit.
great.
I think they're all.
Yeah, if
Maybe we'll
everybody's
have
okay
it
with
by
it,
next
they just need to change it so it's a qualifying.
I'll press them this week to come up with something.
We have several others on here, the Cultural Arts District, the Performing Arts at the RCA, the Texas Hotels and Lodging Association, and RockportFulton.com.
They're supposed to bring us, the guys, I think, is supposed to give us a program on this Texas Hotels and Lodging.
Well, they're running out of time.
There's a state database that basically advertises for anybody that collects hot funds and venue tax. This, but they're not all members of it where they can get that. This amount of money is an amount that association said that they would do everyone in the county for that amount of money a year. I don't know, it might actually give us a source to people who weren't paying hot funds. You know, if they want to get the free advertising, we might get people that are neglected to pay us the money. We might be able to track them down.
So are you saying that there are hotels or motels in the county that don't pay the hot fest?
Airbnb.
More like short,
Alma catches them all the time.
short term, more like short-term rentals, not much.
Okay,
I'm online.
Not hotels and
Hello?
motels.
Can you hear me?
I don't know.
Somebody on,
She could probably tell us. That. I mean, I know some of the
Who?
hotels.
Can you hear me? This is Alma.
yeah,
The hotels are not a problem in paying. It's the houses.
okay.
BRB.
Yeah, it's the BRB kind of stuff.
Alma, have you looked into this deal that this Hotels and Lodging Association program?
No, I have nothing on them. If you could give it to me, I will.
I was in.
Jadine Bhakta said he would come if necessary. Actually, this was the Texas Hotel Lodging Association representative said he would come. But he got sidetracked and had to go somewhere else.
But this is, my understanding, it's to fund a basically dues payment for anybody that's paying in hot funds in the county.
Yeah, everybody that's in the service business, rooms for short-term rentals would be advertised in this, which would add,
Database and advertising and this and all.
right now, just the hotels and hotels are
I
out.
would say we need to have one to come in.
I'll get Jatine to come in and talk to us.
Well, are we a no on everything on this list except for Keep Aransas County Beautiful, which I guess has already been added? Because I have,
Are these on this
No.
sheet? Are they in the budget already?
No.
no, she's asking for direction.
Fulton Mansion asked to go to 30?
Yeah.
Yes, they asked to go from 15 to 30. And then we have two requests for two new ones at 16 and 20,000 apiece. So far, those are no's until we hear a yes. I mean, none of those have
Okay,
really come to
the
make their case
last
to
one,
us.
The rockportfulton.com. Does anybody give us enough, anybody know more about that?
I
My
have only
understanding
heard
is
about it and I don't know the gentleman who,
I've
is
seen a
the
lot of his
promoter.
videos. That's it. And
I haven't seen
Jungbird.
any videos. All I know is that he apparently has almost every entity in Aransas County that he is promoting. And he is just looking for a stipend to help with his
But he
cost
has-
of broadband.
He has no members. I understand that he has. It's him.
And he's just doing it as a service in the community.
But he has.
But
no
I don't have
customers.
any-
The people he does the videos of, they don't pay him anything for it, my understanding. He just. And he needs, I would think that he needs to.
The hotel motel funds cannot be used just for operations like that. It would have, it's
Got to be for
could be
advertising.
Bringing advertising for heads and beds and just operations of that. In my opinion, I don't think.
I mean, that whole website looks like a big ad for, I mean, that's where you go to find out what's for rent, what restaurants are available. I mean, but they're unpaid ads. It's the thing. It's like a volunteer bulletin board that lists everybody in town that you might want to come to if you're a tourist.
What he's requesting is just operations and we can't pay just, I mean, just like everywhere else, we pay for their.
So, would you say that the rockportfulton.com then is a non-qualifying request? We just can't do that with hot fund taxes, hot funds?
I would say no, but
And how about Texas Hotels and Lodging Association? Is that
That does have
non-qualifying?
something to do with hotels and motels. And
It does, but it doesn't have to do with advertising. I mean, can we confirm whether either of these last two qualifies?
well, I'll confirm with them and
I'll get,
double check.
I'll have Jatine Bhakta come in and talk to.
Oh,
all of
I'm sorry. That's the one you said your team was going to come in. I mean, in general, I've been trying to get the word out for a month or more. The people who want hot funds and have submitted something and haven't heard a definite yes back need to come into court and tell us why we should say yes. And nobody's coming in. I mean, if Jatine comes in, that'll be the first. Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, in addition to confirming that it's qualifying, the ones that want us to give them new money or more money than they've gotten in prior years, I think need to come in and make a pitch. And they're not doing that. So they pretty much have next Monday if they want to do it.
Well, and I know that the Cultural Arts District has requested an increase and they have actually given up some of the things that they did in the community, like the Kite Festival. I know they're focusing on the train station and I think they're focusing on the statue. I believe they do a good job organizing the downtown owners and there have been some activities there. But I think the Maritime Museum and the Center for the Arts and some of the galleries are also playing into that. So I would support leaving them at the 10,000, but not giving them more especially since they dropped the Kite Festival. And they're getting 100,000 from the city, so.
So what time, do I ask Jatine to come make a presentation next Monday before the meeting? Okay.
Do you want to do it?
We can,
Or
what?
just have
Well, we had that agenda.
Do the
we had
first
that agenda item.
presentation.
It's always there.
Do the first presentation in the meeting.
And frankly, I'd like to see the Fulton Mansion come and make a pitch.
Well, and maybe-
Well,
maybe-
give them a chance.
Do
And
do we
fire
want
department.
another workshop next Monday?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But do we want to do the workshop? before
Why
we
not?
start The agenda, I mean, before we start our regular.
What the hell?
commissioners' meeting?
If you're gonna have Justine come,
Justine?
Justine.
I don't know about
I
this.
don't think that's
It's been a
quite
long
right
morning.
pronunciation.
I didn't have, I mean, it worked out good this time with us having the meeting first and taking care of what we needed to, and then. when I-
Yeah,
I mean, next-
with items
next
on the
week is like
agenda,
not a regular.
But
That
ask,
depends on how
ask
many
the Fulton
questions.
Mansion and the team to come and anybody else that you think.
And as Alma points out, a little more for Keep Aransas. As
No,
Alma points
yeah,
out, a
well,
little
well,
more for,
somebody from
a little
Fire
more for keeping, Keep Aransas County beautiful might be a good thing since they're the only ones
I don't
proposing to
really
clean
know
up the
who's
beach.
Who's the person?
Sure.
We should, yeah, we should. I mean, the funds are there to be able. to-
Can you ask them, Alma, also to come? KACB?
Well, they had given us their presentation.
I told them, yes.
She was
Keep
just,
Aransas County beautiful.
do they really only want 3,000?
It was in the
That's all they
packet.
asked for, but.
Okay. If-
I mean, they're eligible for more.
If they want to ask for more, they're going to have to show up. Otherwise, not happening. I like the idea of beach cleanup too, in case KACB seems to be the only people doing it, but they're going to have to come in and make a pitch for more money if they're going to get more money.
Well, but do you think that the, do you think that the way the law is written now allows us to clean up other than like 40?
Anywhere in the county.
I thought for a long time that we should go back and insert some words like shoreline into the hotel motel tax to make it clearer that, because, yeah, we could be doing a lot of stuff for people leave trash in Lamar, out by the bridge. It's in 130. So if y'all think that, yeah, we can give them more, because they've been doing a lot of stuff with Valerie, like when we had that boat cleanup, they provided a large number of volunteers for that.
They're pretty great.
And
And I think there's one of the few, there are few things you can do that are better for tourism than keeping the public
Yeah.
waterways clear,
and
clean
we might,
streets.
like say Valerie has worked with them on several things, and they've
they're great.
actually come up with some grant money
Mhm.
to do something like the boat deal.
All right. You're ready to call it a day and come back next week with more information
Sounds good.
and have a, yeah,
I move to adjourn.
motion made and second. Commissioner Castleline, all those in favor, unanimous.
Aye.